Yes. ETM Hotep. Peace, peace to everyone. Shout out to everyone who is already a subscriber to the channel and you were just notified that we are live because, as you know, I will go live on you in a hot minute out the clear blue sky from deep under the ocean. So, yeah, so you're tuned into the Sesh channel. This is your brother Wujau, Medew Maat. And tonight we're just, I would like to have a continuation of the previous conversation that I did on Saturday. So, the Saturday that just passed, I had a Kemet and chill session as tonight, and the title of it was "To Religion or Not to Religion," and basically the show was centered around my Facebook post, where in that show on Saturday I pulled up the Facebook post and I read the post itself, and then I read the comments within the post. Um, yeah, and basically the show was centered around that, and the sister Mika or Tamika, people know her as Mika or Tamika. She was one of the main people that commented on the Facebook post, and she also was able to come on the panel, and we had that discussion. So make sure you go and check it out. And so that's the show was centered around that, and we spent a lot of time on the post and things. And I didn't get as far as I wanted to get into the underlying point that I was making with my Facebook post about religion. So I didn't get a chance to really move forward as far as I would have liked to in that conversation. So we took up a lot of time, pretty much dealing with the post, and I was asking Mika questions and things like that. And so yeah, check it out. It was an interesting conversation. The brother Ankoma came on the panel Saturday, and we also had a good conversation and all of that. So definitely check it out. Now I know the video is like 5 hours long, and so I think Emiket may help everyone out as she normally does with some timestamps to kind of highlight different things within the show. So you all look out for that. That way, you don't get intimidated by a long 5 hour video or whatever the case is. But so anyway, so tonight we're live here, and it is an open discussion, but I do want to at least kick it off with a continuation of that discussion, but to really kind of dig in to the point that I am making with my Facebook post. So again, just shout out to everybody. Let me see if I can get the chat on the screen. Let's see who is in the building first. So we have Philolitis. Looks like he's the first person to give a comment. So peace to the brother Philolitis. And I know he was there Saturday, and so he witnessed the conversation. And I know he has some questions about some things. And I know Philolitis is exercising patience because he said last week, I guess he threw a little shot. What do you call it? Put fire up under me. He said, "Well, hey, sometimes the questions are. I will say a certain question is a good question. We'll have a show about it. That never happens, and so that was received. I heard it loud and clear. So I will do more shows. That way we can have more discussions on a variety of topics that people bring up. So definitely, because a lot of topics, believe it or not, when people ask questions, they're topics that I would love to talk about, but time is one factor, and then another one is how effective can the conversation be? Because I'm a person that advocates efficiency and effectiveness, and so sometimes a topic will come up, somebody will bring something up or ask a question that will require some prerequisite knowledge, in order for it to be effectively talked about, so I take that all in. I take that in consideration. And I say, okay, well, wait a minute. Well, before we get into that, we got to talk about this. So before we get into B, we got to talk about A, because A, you need to know A before you can really understand B. And so sometimes that gets into it. That gets into it as well. So anyway, so appreciate the patience. So we got brother Kevin MC Chill is in the building. Again, shout out to MC Chill. Make sure you all support Chill Talk and all the things that MC Chill is doing. Definitely support. We got the brother Boom in the building. Peace. Sunet Safa. Now listen, y'all. Um, the chat Saturday was now. See, I don't pay attention to the chat while I'm sharing something. Like so, if I'm sharing my screen and I'm reading, from a shared because of the way I share things, I don't pay attention to the chat. One because it's just inconvenient, and then two, I don't want to be distracted. So I just have that practice under my belt. I just don't allow myself to be distracted. And so sometimes, when I go back to the chat and look at it, uh, some things are real, get real, real funny. So the chat, I didn't realize it, but the chat was lit Saturday. I mean, I'm reading the chat after the fact, and it had me cracking up. You know, Sanet Safa was pretty much leading the charge on a few on a few things. So peace to Sister Safa. Um, but it was good, and that's the thing. See, I like the exchange of information, I like the engagement. I don't want anybody, nothing get out of hand, no no negative things or whatever the case is. People, got points across, and we have fun. Pretty much have fun doing it, and that's what it's about. So if we're gonna have fun, that's how it should be done. You know, um, even the sister Mika coming on, you know, um, because on the post, if you were to read the Facebook post, you would think that there was like a big bunch of tension, and when she came on the panel, it wasn't like that. And I even told people on the post, I said Mika is being Mika, and she even said it Saturday. She said, "Well, Joe, I'm just being me, I'm just being me," and stuff like that. I was like, "Yeah, I know," and stuff like that. So things are what they are. It is what it is. All right. So, but hopefully everybody enjoyed themselves. So let's do the same thing tonight. But this time, I do want to actually move the needle forward a bit and get into the point that I'm making. So I'm gonna pick up there. So if y'all want to deal with the conversation from Saturday, then definitely go check out the video. All right. So I don't really want to go backwards and deal with that. Again, uh, and that's it. So, but I'm just gonna repeat what my post was, and then we're gonna jump into it. So, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna post a link. Well, let me explain some things first, because I want to explain some things totally uninterrupted, and then I'm gonna post a link, and hey, come one, come all. Anyone could come on the panel, and we can engage. All right. So welcome to Kemet and Chill, open discussions, Q&A, all of that good stuff. Shout out to Monica Lamb. We got the dynamic duo. See, Monica Lamb. See, I say Monica Lamb is the hardest working woman in the community. And see, I caught myself. See, so I was about to say circus community, but see, then it's kind of crazy for me to say Monica Lamb is the hardest working sister in the circus community. That's that's crazy. That sounds crazy. No, but Monica, Miss Lamb in the chat, but Monica Lamb, Mo, is a hard working sister, man. Seriously. I've known her for years. I haven't met her in person. Um, it's not like we hang out or we BFFs or anything like that, but I've had opportunity to meet her and see her a few times in person, and been keeping up with her online and stuff like that. So I see the work she puts in. That sister works really, really hard. Uh, you know, really, really hard. She definitely has love for the community and helping other people out. Same thing with Kevin MC Chill. Now I haven't met him in person, so we got to arrange that. Kevin, what I'm saying, you going all around everywhere else, different cities and talking to different people, man. But when you gonna come to Atlanta or Georgia, let me know. Definitely let me know. But anyway, so yeah, but Kevin the same. Kevin puts in that work, interviewing people, inspiring people, and he does good talks and interviews and dialogues and things, because we all have mouths and can talk, but then there's people that have like a skill of asking right questions to move conversations forward and make it interesting, stuff like that. So I think that MC Chill definitely have the time and tenure and skills and do that very well. So give a shout out to everybody. Coma Jed, peace. Yep, so I'm here again on Coma. So if you want to pop on in a little bit, by all means, go ahead. All right, so I've given my greetings, shout outs to everyone, and now let's jump in. Let's jump into the discussion. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna pick up where I kind of left off, but I'm gonna be more focused on making my point. So I'm just gonna read my post. I don't think I need to share it. I'm just gonna read it. Let me pull it up because I want to read and by post I mean my Facebook post. So let me find it. I don't even have it pulled up. Okay. So this is what I said. So I'm just gonna say it to you all. I said religion, and I'm using the quotes for the word. The word religion is one of the scariest words to many folks in the circus community. And that was it. That was my statement, my Facebook post. And I always use the hashtags, to mark my posts so I could find them later, so other people could find them. So I have a hashtag called Kill the Noise, because a lot of noise, a lot of people just talking loud but not saying nothing. So, I have this whole thing about kill the noise, which just get straight to it, just kick facts, just get straight to it without the fluff and all the brown nosing and all the other kind of goofy stuff. So I got the hashtag in there. But anyway, so the statement is the word religion is one of the scariest words to many folks in the circus community. Now, the point behind the motivation or the inspiration behind me even doing the post is an accumulation of things. And so what I noticed is in the conscious community, and by now, everyone should be aware that when I say circus community, I'm talking about the conscious community as a whole. I call it a circus community because I just don't like misnomers, and anybody knows me know that I have an issue with misnomers. Like, I don't like to call a parkway a parkway, a driveway. Those are like the two most famous misnomers, because you actually park on a driveway. So let's call it a parkway. It's called a driveway, a parkway, place where you park. But we call a place where you park a driveway, and we call a place where you drive a parkway, which is backwards. So anyway, I don't like misnomers. But same thing with conscious community. Conscious is to be aware and woke or awake and aware, and we have a community. So it's describing a community of awareness or woke, and I just find that a little odd because the community that we're calling the woke community is not that. It's not. So really what it ends up being is, I guess, really a lot of us at one point in time, we learned something different than what we've previously was attached to. So a lot of people were either of the Judaic faith, Christian faith, or belief system, or the Muslim belief system, Islamic. And then they get into something else, and then they say they woke up from that. That's the majority. But then you have overlapping cross. So you have the Hebrew Israelites. You have pastors and ministers and this, that, and the third. Within, it's all mixed up and blended in. You got the Moors. You got Nation of Islam. You have these different groups, different organizations, 5%. And all these different things blended, mixed together in a social community that people call the conscious community. But the behavior and antics and things like that, I call it a circus community, because it gets buck wild out there, and it's a lot of entertainment, simultaneous entertainment going on. So anyway, back to the word religion. So religion is I say, is one of the most scariest words in this social community that we call the conscious community, or I call the circus community. And so I say that because religion gets a bad rap, and I think that a lot of people would agree with me to that extent. If you don't agree with anything else I say afterwards, but a lot of people see that much, that religion gets a bad rap within this so-called conscious community. Religion is demonized. And by the way, I'm paying attention to the chat right now. I can see the chat on the screen. So if you all agree or disagree with me, feel free to say so. And I'm gonna open up the panel. I'm gonna post a link in a minute. But religion gets a bad rap. Now, obviously, when I say these things, I'm not speaking in absolutes. I'm not talking about 100% of the people or every single person and whatnot. I'm speaking in majority, the preponderance of the reality that we're seeing, what we can observe, and religion for the most part, like I said, it gets a bad rap. Religion is demonized, it's shunned, it's treated as if it's a disease almost, and I think somebody said that on my Facebook post. It's treated like it's a disease, and it's something to get rid of or stay away from, and so that's why I say it's the scariest word. Now I use the word scary because scary is synonymous with spooky. When we use the word spooky in any other context, we're talking about things that are scary, because spookiness is associated with ghosts. Ghosts and goblins and ghouls. Those are spooky things, right? Spooky things that are scary things. Haunted house, haunted houses are also spooky houses. A haunted room is a spooky room. Like, oh man, this is so spooky. And you be on the edge and stuff like that. So that's why I use the word scary, because I'm playing on that word, because people look at religion as something being spooky. People who are religious are people who are spooky. They're into spooky things that can't be confirmed. It's outside of science and this, that, and the third. That's the sentiment that a lot of people have. And because of all of the above, religion gets a bad rap. All right. So that's why I said the statement that I say. All right. So I just made the statement, and that's based on the observation. Now, like I said, a lot of people would agree with me to that point. Now, where I get friction and what's challenging for me, and I'm fully aware of it, is when I go further, and this is the point that I want to make, to get into, is that religion is not the problem. Religion is getting a bad rap when it shouldn't. Religion is the innocent victim in all of this. Now, again, there are people who will hear me say that, will agree with everything I said up to that point, but then when I make that statement, they're like, "Oh boy, I can't rock with you now, Wujao. You done took a turn now. Something's wrong. What you been drinking? What you been smoking?" But this is my argument, and I can make a case for it. So religion gets these bad raps because it is being misidentified as being a problem when it's really the innocent victim of all these different circumstances. The real blame should be put on belief and not religion. And so immediately what I'm doing is I'm separating religion from belief. And so a lot of people will have a hard time keeping that separation, because it's been drilled in our heads that religion and belief are synonymous. And the way that people talk about religion, they're really talking about belief. And for example, I'm gonna give you an example of a similar example. It's not the same, but it's the same principle behind it. When a lot of people, and I'm speaking at least for people in the United States, a lot of Americans, people in the United States, especially among African Americans, when we talk about Africa, although we can look at a map and see that Africa is a continent, and the word Africa is a geographical term used as a label for a large landmass, right? Like we can know all of that, and we can look that up, and we know that, right? But when we talk about Africa, and when we use the word Africa in everyday conversations and stuff, we talk about Africa as if it's a country and not a continent, and things like that. So we tend to kind of just lump everything together and call it Africa, and we forget that there's 54 distinct countries on the continent of Africa, and we don't name the countries. We just name the continent. Whenever we talk about Africa this, Africa that, we don't name the country in general. I'm not saying everybody, but in general. And so this is what I'm saying. The reason why I bring that up is because when it comes to religion and belief, we talk about belief, but we use the word religion. We're really talking about belief systems of belief, but we use the word religion when we have the conversations. Oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. You hear people say that. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. I'm not really this or that. Things like that. We all hear these things. You know. And so this is why the very word religion gets a bad rap. So we need to separate, just like I would separate, and this is what I've done, and I get pushed back on the whole Africa thing. I'm like, listen, man, we got to stop talking about Africa as if it's a homogeneous single entity. The African continent is the most diverse continent on the planet, the most diverse groups of people, the most languages on the planet, and the whole nine. But yet we talk about it as if it's one entity, Africa. No, it's the name of a continent, yes, but there's different people, different communities, different groups, different ethnicities, and the whole nine. 54 countries, be it from the Berlin Conference or not, there are 54 distinct countries on the continent, which are political entities, polities, states, and things like that. So, and I get pushed back when I say that, and I know why. It's just because people are not used to being, more proper in identifying these things. When we talk, we tend to kind of get lazy in our regular conversations and just lump everything together, be all vague and things like that. So anyway, so back to religion. Religion and belief is the same type of thing that's going on. So the culprit is belief, not religion. So now, why do I make a big deal about this, or enough deal to mention it and to make a point with it? Because, and this is my reason, and this is my argument, if we properly identify things, not just with religion and belief, though, it goes for many things, but I'm only talking about religion and belief right now. But if we were to properly identify religion for what it actually is, and we identify belief for what it is, then we could start to troubleshoot. Now, whenever we feel that there's a problem going on, we all know that to solve a problem, you have to accurately identify the problem. If you're unable to identify a problem, it will never get solved. So the first step to a solution is to actually properly identify the problem, which seems backwards, but that's what it is. You can't solve anything that you don't recognize as a problem. Now, we know there's problems going on, but now we have to accurately dissect the problem. We have to actually pinpoint the issue. We have to look at the causal agents of these different problems. And so, by us properly identifying religion for what it is and properly identifying belief for what it is, now we can get surgical. Now we can attack the actual problem, which is belief. And belief is rooted in ignorance. Now, we all know that ignorance is not a good thing. It's not a preferred state to be in. Nobody wants to be in a state of ignorance. We all want to be in a state of knowing, knowledge. not unknowing and being in a state of ignorance. Although we begin that way because we don't know everything, but our pursuit in life is to gain experience and to gain knowledge, right? That's what life. That's part of life. You seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. So, although we don't know everything, throughout our entire lives, we're seeking to know. So we understand ignorance has its place, but it's not a preferred state. If you're ignorant in something, we are at a constant flux of trying to rectify that. We're not happy with not knowing. We start off not knowing, then we gain knowledge, and then we leave that behind, right? So that's the root of the issues. It's through the ignorance that a lot of these problems arise. Now, that's belief. That's what belief is. Belief, the very word believe and belief means to hold something dear, and it means how it functions in our in real time in reality is it's the acceptance of things that you do not know. That's what belief is. When we tell somebody I believe you, if I say something to you and you say, well, Joe, I believe you. When you say that, what the concept behind you saying that is really you accept what I'm saying as true, even if you don't know it's true or not, but you accept it as true. And so and that notion comes from the actual meaning of the word, the actual coinage of the word belief, which is the word to hold dear. It's tied into the word love. To believe is to hold something dear to you, to accept something. And so you accept things that you don't know. That's a belief. And but that's rooted in ignorance, because if you don't know, that's the word ignorance. Ignorance means not knowing, not to know. And so belief and ignorance are brothers and sisters. They're siblings. Now, on the side of religion, because I know people want me to define these terms. As a matter of fact, let me put it on the screen. I don't know why I don't even have it on the screen, so you all can follow along with what I am saying. Let's put belief on here. Let me make it big for everyone. I have to take the chat off momentarily. So let me go backwards. Belief. Now, this part right here, and this is from our Saturday conversation where I pulled this up and had it on the screen. So where I have this blue arrow at that you all can see is the history of the word, the etymology of the word believe and belief. Okay. Now, etymology is very important. Don't sleep on etymology. And at the same time, don't abuse etymology either, because I see people violate logical fallacies by using the etymological meaning. Really, they don't even use that. They actually use a diachronic meaning, meaning a historical meaning of a word that has changed over time, but they want to go back to the previous meaning to make an argument for something in the context of which is used now. And so you have to be careful not to violate those logical fallacies. But the etymology of words are very, very important, because it gives you the wider scope of the concepts behind the word. We get a fuller understanding of what these things mean. So that's what this paragraph is here, the etymology. These other two are the two modern senses of the word in the dictionary, and that comes from Dictionary Online, dictionary.com or something like that. So I highlighted the word acceptance, because you'll see, once you know the history of the word, you'll see why it is used the way it's used today. And that's not always default a good thing, as we're going to see with the word religion. But belief, in a nutshell, is the acceptance of something as being true, but you don't know that it's true or not. That's the root within this, because if you look at the history, that's what it is. It's just simply to hold dear, to love, and so on and so forth. If you read it, all right. So you all can read that. Take a screenshot and read that. Now, with religion, on the other hand, religion is different. And so I'm going to show you the etymology of the word religion. And I share this all the time. This is the etymology of the word religion. Religion, and then you all can read that. But to give you kind of like the overview of what the word, how the word functions in reality, is religion is would be the best described as an obligation, a contract, a bond. Okay, and now you see it comes from religio, which originally meant obligation and bond, and it comes from the compound Latin word of prefix, which is re, and then a root ligare, which means to glue, to bind, or to tie something, to connect something. Okay, now I've seen people look at the etymology and then just totally jack it up. Even when they read it, they say, "See, religion. We shouldn't have religion because it holds you back. Because see how the prefix re means back. It ties you back. It holds you back. They say it holds you back. See, we could never progress with religion. That's why we shouldn't be religious and have religion and so on and so forth." And that's crazy. It's funny to me, but I see people do that all the time. But the prefix re, they have back here listed here, but it's back in the sense of perpetual. It's not back as in the way people think it is. It's the word re is the same prefix in the word repeat. Like when you repeat something, you are doing something over and over and over again. So the prefix re in the word religion is something that is done over and over and over again, which is the concept of being perpetual or redundant. That's what we say, redundant, perpetual. Even the very word reply and the very word repeat, it has this prefix in it. You know, the same prefix. So ligare is a bond. It's the same word, the same root, Latin root that we get the word ligament, ligature, something that is glued together, something that is connected, like the connective tissue of our bodies is called ligaments, from the same root, ligare. Okay, so because the connection or the bond is a continual or perpetual thing, we simply call that a contract, an obligation, a bond. That's what it is. Now, where this word took its turn, and the excuse people are using to demonize it is here, when the general bonding of things in the word religion became associated with the bond between human beings and gods. Okay, that is the source of the problem with the word religion right there, is when gods have been associated with being one of the items that is bonded to something else, which happens to be human. So humans being glued to gods, which is what religion is the beginning of the problem, because people's interpretation of what gods are and what gods are not. That is the beginning of the problem. But the very word religion itself, it doesn't deal with gods itself. It's just the bond itself. It's just a bond. It's a contract. So if we separate the beliefs that people have, which is rooted in ignorance, from the social contracts that we must have to be a community and to be human beings and fellow human beings and live and engage one another on the planet and stuff, we will understand that every culture or group of people or community of people or population of people that have a system and a structure, they have a religion. They must have a religion in order to be a community. Because a community is a people break down and understand a community being a collective of people that are unified on the basis of a list of things. That unification and that relationship that these people have to come together to form a community is by way of social contracts, social obligations, social bonds. That is the proper definition and use of religion. It's religion that keeps a community a community. It's religion that allows people to identify as a member of a particular group or not a group. That's what religion does and is. So if we separate the belief out of ignorance from that, we're cool. But now, why do I make it a big deal or bring this even bring this up is because this is what happens. So now it goes back to my statement that I posted on Facebook. The statement that I made is that religion is one of the scariest words in the conscious community, in the circus community, because this is what happens when you trash religion or you demonize religion. You're what you're doing is you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because the real problems that people have is really with belief, but because they associate belief with religion, they throw it all out. Now, when they throw out religion, they're throwing out the social contracts. They're throwing out the elements that bind people together. They're throwing out the community, the nuts and bolts of what makes a community a community. And what are those things? Those are social contracts of engagement and interaction, how we communicate to each other, how we engage one another, how we interact with each other, how we treat one another, how do we, all of that. And notice that people who demonize religion, just look at the level of discipline and the level of character and behavior that people have, that totally dismiss religion versus people who are religious, and especially within the conscious community. For example, I'm gonna give you an example. For instance, people make fun of people who deal with crystals and astrology and yoga and wearing copper jewelry and reading tarot cards and all these other types of things. So you know there's a whole community of people that do that, right? A whole community of people that do yoga. The same people that do yoga are the same people that wear, you look at their jewelry, they have this copper jewelry, look like coat hangers all around their wrists and fingers with a crystal stone in the middle of it and things like that. It's like, peace my brother, and they put their hands together and they're very, very peaceful, very, very like, I don't want to say passive as like a negative thing, but I hope you all understand what I'm saying. I know everybody in the chat knows somebody like that. If you're not one of those people yourself, you know some people like that. So I know I'm not the only one, right? So, but here's my point in bringing that up. Those people, even though whatever they believe may be rooted in ignorance, like they may not know the facts of something, or they could be 100% wrong about something, but they accept it. But guess what? On the religion side, they're up to par because they have the discipline, they have the structure, they communicate, they are their character is not rough around the edges and things like that. So there's like a trade-off. It's like they're up to speed on all of that, but they're not up to speed on accurate or factual information. because they're swimming in ignorance, because they're heavy in beliefs, but they have that religious aspect of religion. What and I'm using religion in the way that you see it on the screen. These contracts, so they have tenure and practice in the integrity part of these social contracts, how they treat one another, how they greet each other, and all this and that. But notice that people are polarized on the other end. They don't have the other part. So yeah, they may have the facts. They say, hey, cite your sources. Do you have a source for that? If it ain't follow the scientific method, I ain't hearing it. You got people who overemphasize STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the STEM disciplines. You got people who overly emphasize that and ignore totally or partially the humanities disciplines, such as sociology, psychology. And remember, psychology is the study of the human mind and behavior. But yet you have people who are overly overemphasize STEM and ignore human behavior and things like that. And what I'm saying and the point I'm making is that religion, if properly defined, is actually something that we should embrace and hold up and do. That's why I said to religion or not to religion. Religion is something that we should do. We should make it an action, like just like science, like we've done science, and we'll even play with that. We'll say, "Do you science?" Now we know science is a noun, but we play with it as if it's a verb. We say, "Do you science?" Do science. We should also be saying, "Do religion." Do you religion, or do you not religion? Do you do science, or do you not do science? So that's the way it is. So the real enemy, the real culprit is ignorance, which is directly related to belief. That's what we should be attacking, the belief part of it. We should be curing the ill of ignorance with information and knowledge. That leads us into epistemology. We would have to know when we know something. What is knowledge, and how do we know when we know something? Only then can we start to eliminate ignorance, which is not knowing, and go that route. But we should not be attacking the bonds and contracts and the very fabric of what makes a community a community. This is why people don't get along. Online, you hear people fussing, cursing each other out, people beefing, making up only to beef again, make up and beef again, and stuff like that. You got men cursing out women, women cursing out men, and it's not just in the conscious community. This is in many communities, by whatever names. And so these are the things that we need to kind of approach with a fresh set of eyes. And that's the argument I'm making, that it begins with separating religion from belief. Let's not put on religion's back, the word religion's back, things that don't belong there. Now we've been doing it, but it doesn't mean that it's right, and we shouldn't do it. And so that's the point that I'm making, because remember, a lot of communities around the world, where we have a global human population, right, of roughly almost 8 billion people now on the planet right now, 7 point whatever, right? The global human population is segmented and divided up into different clusters, populations of people that we would call many different things. We could say it's clusters in what we would call cultural groups, ethnic groups, national groups, or whatever the case is. And these groups are defined by the relationships of its members, the members within any given group. Okay, to belong to any given group, there has to be something that allows you to know that you belong to that group versus a different group, right? And so if we start to emphasize and understand that, and then start to tackle and remove the ignorance and have some kind of system to be able to move remove and move that out the way, we would make much, much more progress, um, and whatnot. But we don't have that. We have people that we are attacking everything. We're lumping everything together and we're throwing it all out in the trash. Not knowing the consequence is what we're seeing today, where like I said, we don't know how to have relationships. We don't know how to do business, and business is a system of relationships, personal relationships between husband and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and then you got all other kind of relationships. Um, we're way behind on that, and we don't understand the glue that religion is. And if we had to summarize religion as a single word, that's what it is: religion, glue, that which glues, and gets the word ligament and so on and so forth. And so like I said, if we properly define these things, we would stop, you know, being silly and giving, innocent things, condemning innocent things, or convicting innocent things, as opposed like how people convict innocent people, or what have you. So anyway, so that's it. So basically, I guess I'm a defense lawyer for religion at this point, right now. I'm making a case for religion. I'm defending religion. You know. So the question that I get when I say everything I say is, well, what do you call Christianity, Judaism, or Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and stuff like that? Then if what you're saying is the way to go, ujau, and this and that, and I will repeat what I always say, and I want y'all to notice and think back in your mind, if you're familiar with me, whenever I mention Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, I always say the Abrahamic belief systems. I always say belief system. I don't say religions, but when other people say it, I know what they're talking about. But I try my best to use the words in their proper way, or the way that I feel that is solution based. So the Abrahamic belief systems, because when we start to properly label these things, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, as the Abrahamic belief systems, which is a system of beliefs, then it will make sense why they're lumped under Abrahamic, because Abraham is the main patriarch within those three belief systems. They have the same characters throughout those three belief systems. All three of them have the same characters, the same stories. All of them have an Abraham. All of them have a Moses. All of them have an Adam and Eve, a Solomon, a David, a Cain, an Abel, a Noah, a Job. Even if the languages slightly differ, so Solomon is Shulayman, or Suleiman in Arabic, and Shalomo in Hebrew. Jesus is Yeshua in Hebrew, Isa in Arabic, and Jesus in English, and Spanish speakers Jesus and whatnot. Moses is Moshe in Hebrew, Musa in Arabic, and we just simply say Moses. Eve we say Eve, but it's Hawa or Hava in Hebrew, etc., etc., etc. These are the same characters in the same belief system. It's the same, but it's been chopped into three because of a whole bunch of other things for another conversation. But it's the same belief system, and then it branched off. It's the same roots, and so but we call it religious, and so people in there, we say, okay, you're in a religion, you're religious, and we throw it all the way out instead of just dealing with it on the level of a belief system and moving them through the epistemological ocean, pull them in that boat across that ocean to lead them to knowledge, instead of dogging and throwing away religion. Now, I'm gonna open it up after I say this. I'm gonna post a link. Now, how do you know? Now, I'm gonna show you the observation of how you know what I'm saying to be able to demonstrate and prove what I'm saying. At least in the United States, right? Among African Americans, we're known to be the most quote unquote religious people. Racially classified black people are the most religious people. That's the stereotype. That's the saying out there. Black people are the most religious people. We're the most spiritual people because people equate spiritual with being religious nowadays as well. Black people are the most religious, and we're the most spirited people. We are the most. Some will argue we're the most gullible people because of that. But we deal with the church. And I want you to notice, look at the African American history here in the United States of America, quote unquote black history. We gravitated towards the church. The church was the center hub of our communities. I'm going to repeat that. The church was the center hub of all of our communities. All of them. Everybody gravitated towards the church. Everything came in through by way of the church in our communities. Now, I don't know about other countries. I'm only speaking about African American history here in the United States. Okay? The church was a central point. It still is. The church is huge. AME, Episcopal Church, the Baptist Church, whatever the case is, Pentecostal, whatever different denominations, how they split everything up. But the church was the main thing, the community hub. Now, in the church provided a network of relationships. We say families and networking and things like that. Those are social bonds. That's the religion. It provided a medium to execute religion. But in there, it was overlaid with ignorance of the beliefs. And they got tied together. And so when we grow up and we start to use technology and start to invoke science, and we find out that some of the things our parents believed was absolutely garbage or trash or incorrect, we throw it in the trash. But because we connect those beliefs with the religion aspect of it, we throw it all in the trash and we leave the church. We totally leave the church and we demonize the church. We say, oh man, I don't go to church. Man, anybody go to church is crazy, stupid, whatever. The back of they're spooky. I ain't going to the church. Why go to church and this, that, and the third? So guess what happened? When we left the church, there's a breakdown in the social structure, the religion part, the social contracts and things, the networking and all that kind of stuff is lost. So now there's a breakdown in the community. Because remember, a community is only a community based on the bonds that the people have in the community. That's religion. And the church, again, I'm going to repeat this. The church as the center hub of that is what provided that climate for these bonds to take place. And if we destroy the church, because remember, I'm gonna get my minister hat on right now, pastor hat on. Remember, the very word church means assembly. It's not the building, right? A church is really an assembly of people. So the church, the assembly of people, only assemble to exercise and establish relationships. That's the glue. That's the social contracts that are being formed and emphasized and cultivated. That's religion. Okay. We're losing that because we're throwing away the whole idea about church with the beliefs. So we don't believe in Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, not the first two people on the planet. God don't exist and stuff. The Bible is trash. I'm going to burn the Bible. I'm going to throw the Bible away, the Quran, this, that, and the third. People dog all of that stuff out. But guess what? When we do that, there's innocent the innocent bystander that's affected is religion or the social contracts. That's why we don't get along with each other. People beefing left and right, don't know how to communicate, don't know how to talk to people. We got overinflated egos, all that kind of stuff. See, by now, those things would, of course, they would still exist. We would probably never get a perfect society or utopia. So I don't want to see anybody comment and say, "Well, Joe, you definitely naive. You think things would be perfect." No, but again, I'm talking the majority. I'm talking about preponderance. If we were to cultivate those things, it would be a lot less. It'd be more people that would understand these things and have these things established. The cultivation of that stuff would have been a lot greater than what we have right now. There's a breakdown. Now, here's another for instance to verify and confirm what I'm saying. Because the church level that I just discussed, everybody can bear witness to that. If you're an African American in the United States of America and you do not know that the church was the hub of all of our communities, then I don't know what school you went to, but go back there and get your money back. Okay? But below the level of church, you have the level of family, the family household structure. Within every family household structure, what we call a household, there is religion. There is a bond of people that are bonded together and have a relationship and engage one another on a level of family through biological relationships. So we have a biological aspect underpinning all of that, where you have husband, wife, children who are siblings. That them is also broken. So we're breaking things up on multiple levels, which results in the behavior that you're seeing all around us. The family structure is broken. Women don't need men. The whole campaign, independent woman, emancipation, like among the youth now, the word emancipation is the big thing with them now. They want to be emancipated from being told what to do, from structure and stuff. They want to be free. They want to be emancipated. If any of y'all have children that are 18 and under, ask them. Ask them about that whole young thing, that whole thing about emancipation. That's a whole new thing right now. I had to learn about that. Me as a parent. So the family structure is broken. The church structure is broken. These are religions. So anyway, I'm gonna get off my little lecture thing that I'm doing right now, and open it up. Cause I could keep on going. I could keep saying the same thing, but I don't want to bore y'all to death with just me. So let me post this link here. I think I've said enough to spark the conversation. Anybody want to come and add to or try to take away, be my guest. Oh, wait a minute. I got to post the link up. Shout out to everybody. Now, I was running my mouth. I tried to pay attention to the chat, but like I said, I didn't want to get distracted in what I was saying. So I apologize for me not paying close enough attention. But there's the link, and I'm going to pin it to the top. Pin the message. Yes, indeed. All right, so there's the link. So come one, come all. Everybody's invited. I don't discriminate against anybody. Well, I can't say that. Let me take that back. I do discriminate against folks with bad character and stuff. If I recognize you having bad character and all that stuff, you are definitely going to get the boot. That's it. Everything else I'm cool with. But I want to appreciate Sumo for the super chat. I'm not sure what currency AUD is in, but definitely, I definitely appreciate that. I appreciate any donation, because I don't really solicit donations and things like that. Like you don't hear me saying, giving out my Cash App or things like that. So when I see people do that, I really appreciate it because this like definitely unsolicited. And many times I forget that we even have super chat on here. You know, I'm sure you all can count on your one hand how many times I mentioned super chat or anything. I probably just said it more than I said in this whole year just now. Super chat, super chat, super chat, super chat. But yeah, I appreciate that. But let me just read what you have. You said talking about religion. How did Amun end up as the state god of Kit if his residence was at Jebel Barkal? What's the earliest known date for Amun? That's an excellent question. Well, let me hide this here. That's a really good question. Um, so, in order for me to really get a really really good answer, let me see. How can I say this? Well, when you say I'm gonna end up as a state god, that's kind of misleading because Kemet had many deities, and many deities was on the level of what we would call state gods. So it's not like Amun was the state god. He was one of the gods of the kingdom of, or seen as representation of the state, as we would say. And one of the reasons is because of what Amun, one of the things that Amun represents to the ancient Egyptians. Now we understand that the very word Amen is often translated as hidden or the hidden one, right? Now that's just the I more so colloquial way that people just define or translate that word Amen. Amun or Amen or Aman. It means the hidden one, but it's actually conveys the meaning of being imperceivable, but not just imperceivable in and of itself. It's talking about the foundation of things, where the things that manifest prior to manifestation, where it becomes tangibly quantifiable and all this other kind of stuff, it is imperceivable, and which means that it's hidden or unknowable. And so that sets the foundation. So within the word Amen, you will have in its history, its etymological history, words that mean foundation or something that is at the root of something. And so when it comes to rooting the kingdom or re-anchoring the kingdom on solid foundation, then Amun becomes elevated and important in terms of a cultivated deity. So Amun would peak as a quote unquote, as you say, a state god because of the concept of re-anchoring the foundation of the country itself. And I say that because we all know that ancient Egypt roughly lasted approximately 3,000 plus years. And during those 3,000 plus years, Kemet went through its glory days where it's nice and rosy and peachy. And then it went through its rough patches. And then it went back to rosy and peachy, rough patches. And if you notice, if you study Egyptian history at a more broad level, you'll notice that when Egypt comes out of those rough patches, Amun would be prominent, would be a prominently talked about deity. And also, when ancient Egypt comes out of those or came out of those rough patches, it was usually involved some kind of fighting, some war, whether it's civil, internal, or external, driving out foreign elements or not. It was usually some kind of violence or some kind of war that was going on, where Amun would peak as a very important deity, and then after that you'll see some prosperity again. And so it's for these reasons, and like I said, I'm trying to answer your question without giving a whole big class on that, because there's more that goes on in that, but you ask how did it end up as a state god? So again, um, Amun is one of many gods, and it becomes Amun becomes elevated at certain points in Egypt's history, usually during times of war or thereafter, because of the concept of anchoring, reestablishment. Now remember, there's a word min in the language, and there's a word jed in the language. Jed is a pillar, and min is a platform. And so min and jed both mean stability. Min means stable or stability, and the word jed means stable or stability. One is a horizontal foundation or stability, and the other one is a vertical or upright stability where you can lean. So you can lean on one, but you can lie down on the other. So remember that. The jed pillar is something that is stable, that you can count on, that you can lean something on. The min stability is something that you can stand something on top of. And so that lays a foundation. Okay? So remember that. So anyway, like I was saying, the link is in the chat, y'all. It's pinned to the top. But I appreciate the question. If nobody else has anything else, I'll come back to it and we can elaborate more on that. All right. Even the brother Ankoma Jed, he has the word Jed in his name. He has the Jed pillar as his avatar, and Jed means stability. Well, a word Jed, and we gotta be careful of that too, because how I just said it, I had to correct myself. I said the word Jed as if there's only one word Jed in the Egyptian language. There's a word Jed that means to speak, to say. That's a different word from Jed as in the Jed pillar, but we pronounce it and spell it the same, Jed. So the word Jed that means stability is the pillar. Okay, and you can lean things up. So if you're a contractor and you're in the construction business, every 2x4 that you lay is a Jed pillar because you can lean things up against it. You can brace the wall on that. It forms a structure. And that foundation, if you're in the concrete or whatever, you're gonna lay that foundation, and that foundation has to be strong and perfect before you start to build on top of it. And remember, ontologically, everything in existence that we can see, touch, taste, hear, and smell, and becomes part of our tangible reality, starts off in the world of the intangible. And so in ancient Egypt, there's a concept of Nu or Nun, and that's the beginning of any and everything that you can imagine. There's nothing in the Egyptian psyche, the ancient Egyptian psyche, or what have you, that is before or beyond Nu or Nun. Everything comes out of Nu or Nun in terms of an ontological or a taxonomic hierarchy. Okay, and Nu or Nun itself can only be described by way of an analogy or metaphor, which is water, because of the nature of water. The way that water behaves is the way that the ancient Egyptians imagined that this state called Nu exists, which is from Nu, because everything comes out of Nu. It's the same as water in the sense that water can take the shape of anything that contains it. So if you pour water in a wide bowl, water will take the shape of a bowl. If you pour water in a narrow soda bottle, it'll take the shape of a soda bottle. So water will become the shape of anything it's poured in. So it's very fluid. We call water fluid. It's very the way it behaves, it will take the shape of whatever defines it. Because remember, the word define or definition is to place a limit around something. So once you carve out a limit around something, whatever you carve out, that shape is what's called form. And so the forms of existence comes out of the formless, and the formless is what is new or nun. It is the infinite and eternal formless. It has no form. There's no movement. There's no light. There's no none of that. And new is described by eight, or I should say four parallel attributes. 2 by 4, which is becomes 8. Chaminu, which is new and new net. He and he het. Kek and kiket. And then Amen and Amenet. Those are what the Greeks call the Ogdod, but the Egyptians call the Kaminu or the Kimnu, which are the great eight. And these are attributes and descriptors of Nu itself. And so Nu is written as the father of the Kaminu, the father of those eight deities. And then from those eight, you have Ra, Atum, and Nefertim, and all the other different deities, form this kind of hierarchical relationship from there. All right. And so just remember, kind of remember all of that. And I'm still speaking on it. So when I say Amen, or when you ask about Amen being a stability, is because Amen is that imperceivable aspect of all things, from which all things come. Before things are manifested, they start off in the unmanifested. And the manifestor, or the process of manifesting, which we call evolution, or to manifest, is the very deity Keper. The word Keper means to evolve or to come into being. That process of coming into being, which is a process, is deified as Keper, and signified by the symbol of the scarab beetle. Okay, so just remember all of that. And so I'm gonna go back in the chat because I don't see anybody coming on here. And if y'all didn't notice, I prefer the verbal engagement, but let me start reading the chat, because I haven't been doing too well with the chat. I'm trying to back up. And Emicat, I know Emicat is in the chat. If you can also help me out and point out any questions. Listen, if you all have something to share with me, or whether it's whether you disagree with me or agree with something, or want to make a point or whatever, make sure you tag the name, the Seshu name, so I can see it, so it'll stick out. All right, so make sure you tag that. So we have Emicat is in the building now, but I'm gonna go through. Let's see. So I scrolled up, and I think you all talking about gospel. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Gospel. I'm glad somebody mentioned gospel music. Listen, there is nothing. Listen. I'm gonna ask y'all a question, and I know there's a lag, so I'm gonna look for the answer later. But here's my question to y'all. If you had to choose a source that produced the best singers, what source would it be? Would you agree? I'll word it this way. Would you agree that the church, by way of gospel music, produced the best quality singers? And I'm not saying everybody, obviously. Like I said, when I talk like this, I'm not talking in absolutes. Hopefully people don't. I shouldn't have to even say this. But what I'm saying is, the predominantly quality singers that we have come to know and love in the music industry, young, old, past, present, would you agree with me that those singers that we can identify like that come out of the church, come out of the gospel, the choir, the church scene. Would y'all agree with me on that? All right, but so I'm gonna let y'all answer that, but I'm gonna keep on going down the list here. Uh, like I said, I apologize ahead of time. I'm not very good with the chat when I'm running my mouth. All right, so I'm going to I'm allowed to scroll back, but so far, and then I can scroll down, and I don't like dead silence. So I'm sitting here looking and reading, and trying to talk at the same time because I don't like that dead silence. Maybe Emmy Cat can grab the microphone if she, you know what I'm saying? She's supposed to be the co-host, and everything. Grab the microphone. Let me, you know.
Yeah, so yeah, no, I came to help you out. So I know you can't scroll back, but maybe you could just make things a little bit more clearer for some people because and this might apply to other people also just listening at a later date because just there was one I'll just read the two comments that maybe will help you clarify things that might not be clear for most people. So there was one from Joe Jones and said, I'd rather say culture than religion. So maybe you want to elaborate the difference between culture and religion. In that sense, can you replace culture for religion, or are they two different things? And then Black Nation said religion is a belief system. You can't separate belief from religion. So, maybe I know you've clarified enough, but just to kind of to summarize the difference between religion and belief, is religion part of belief, or is religion the belief? And that's, is it synonymous or interchangeable in that sense, just to put a nail on it, where people really understand that.
Okay, good. Appreciate that because I definitely didn't see that in the chat. So, all right. So let's back up. Religion and belief are different. Uh, and if anybody wants proof of it, just look up the entire history of the use of those words. There's a certain point in time where religion becomes synonymous with belief. And that is my argument that that is a problem. So I'm not here, like I said Saturday, I'm not here denying that people do use religion and belief synonymously. I'm the one that brings that to the table. I'm saying that people do that. But what I'm also saying is that when people do that, they're part of the problem. Okay? Religion is not belief. So let's get that straight. It's not. But we've made it synonymous. And by making it synonymous, we created a problem. So I'm not going to sit here and repeat the problem once I identify it as a problem. I'm not going to advocate and condone the problem. I'm going to work towards the solution. So the solution is to separate them like they should be and then deal with the belief. Because as I said earlier, belief is the sister to ignorance. Belief and ignorance are closely connected, which leads me into the other part, the other person. Now let's talk about culture. Culture and religion have been used synonymously by people, and they shouldn't. Just like religion and belief are, and they shouldn't. Culture is not religion. Religion is not culture, but we use them as if they're synonyms. But the reason why is because they are closely related. So belief is closely related to ignorance, but religion is closely related to culture because culture is or religion, go back to what I was saying about religion. Religion is the social contracts, is this concept of bonds and binding and gluing and tying and connecting, the connections, the highway or the network of connections within a society is that society's religion. And because the connective tissue that keeps the people connected, and then their overall behavior and character of the collective of people is seen as their culture, then religion gets equated to culture. Okay, that's how those two things, overlap and become pretty much equalized, or made into synonyms. But belief is not that, because here's the thing. Just think about it logically. This is some basic logic now, right? If religion equals culture on one hand, and then you got somebody else saying religion equals belief, then if A equals B and B equals C, then guess what? A equals C. Then what people are saying is culture is belief. That makes absolutely no sense. Because people want to throw away belief, but if we're going to equate belief with religion and then equate religion with culture, then they're going to throw it all in the trash. And that's what's happening. We don't have culture. Like we don't have a bona fide culture, because people are throwing away and equating these things. They're throwing it all in the garbage. They're throwing it all in the trash. So it makes no sense to equate religion to belief and then turn around and equate religion to culture. Because if you do that, you're gonna want to throw away belief, which means to throw away religion, which means to throw away culture. What are we left with? We're going backwards. We're just being totally what do you call it? In survival mode. Pure animalistic. The undomesticated animal. Remember, a human being is a domestic animal. And I know me saying that will probably stir the pot up a bit. A human being is a domesticated animal. Okay? Humans are animals, but we're domestic. We're domesticated. We are animals. Nobody can deny that. We're animals because we move on our own volition. The whole animal kingdom, the word animal comes from the word anime, which means to move. We're able to move on our own volition. Other than plants, or other than plants, or rather than plants. The plant kingdom is only called the plant kingdom as a differentiator from the animal kingdom, because plants cannot move on their own volition. Plants move when the wind blows, but they don't move on their own volition like animals do. Humans are in the animal kingdom, but we're domesticated animals. We're domestic animals. But anyway, what I'm saying is that if we lose culture, we lose religion, we lose these social bonds, we lose all this glue and fabric that creates this community, the community aspect, which is ties back to our mammalian part of our anatomy, then we're just purely animalistic. We're moving off of instincts now, and we lose logic, we lose reasoning, we lose the higher functions of the prefrontal lobe, the other parts of the brain, and things like that. So there's a lot that could go in. We could talk about physiological aspects or psychological aspects. I'm game for either one. But the point is that religion is not culture, although they're closely related. There's some overlaps. And belief is not religion, although today it's used with overlaps. And it's only used overlap today, belief and religion, is because the religious part of beliefs is the bond between humans and gods. And once you invoke that word God, whoop, you done tapped into some beliefs. Okay? You take the word God out of it, can't nobody argue with you. Nobody can argue with you. You got people out here who are professing to be atheists, which is really a stance to take. That's the laziest and easiest stance to take, believe it or not. Because to be an atheist is really to take no position. Really what you're saying is that I just don't believe anything. That's it. It doesn't mean that you're pursuing something or that you're investigating something or anything like that, or you're trying to even know. It's just a stance to reject anything, everything. It's like I reject everything. I'm rejecting all that stuff. That's just my position. I'm rejecting. You know how easy that is. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, I just don't believe it. Nope, I don't believe it.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my question, actually, regarding that, with, especially with people who not, because the regular person might not really understand religion and belief systems, so they can, have those misunderstandings. But my question was in respect to, people who are researchers or who label themselves as researchers or as scholars, when when you see those kind of individuals spookified by religion, my question was going to be, is it because there's this laziness and and they have no zeal to actually dive deep into understanding what religion is, or is it because it was a fear of actually finding out that what it is that they're throwing out is actually necessary for a human behavior and interaction with other humans. So it really, is it like they're scared that if they go deep into it, then they will find that there is all the essential things that a human being needs are some of the things that they're actually denying or running away from.
Okay, you said a mouthful there. But before I address that, I want to address Anusha's comment. She says, "So I'm lazy because I've rejected it." So let me clarify that, because like I said, I know that when I say certain things, it's going to stir the pot up a little bit. So when I say that, so first of all, let's agree that an atheist as a person is a person who has the stance of atheism. Atheism and an atheist has an atheistic stance. It's basically a stance. That's what atheism is, or atheists plural. These are people who have taken a stance. But what is that stance? The stance is not a stance just out there all willy nilly. It's a stance against the belief in gods. So they use the word atheos, and it connects it to the word theos, which is God, right? So it's a stance against the belief in gods. And that's it. So in and of itself, that's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with that. Anusha, when you say so, I'm not making it into a problem. What I As far as the lazy part is, what I'm saying is that to take that stance, it's it's very easy. It's like simple. It's like listen, if you can't provide evidence for me to accept something, then I'm not going to accept it. And that's easy. That's really all it is. That's all it is, because the moment that evidence is shown, for any given thing or whatever, then you have to follow the evidence. But the person who's declaring a rejection of a belief, they're not the ones who are doing the investigation. So that's what I mean by lazy. So let me put it on myself. If I call myself an atheist, which means that I took the stance that I reject your belief. I reject your belief. Now, belief, when it's properly defined, is when somebody accepts something that they don't know. So I don't accept it. You accept something you don't know, but I don't. So I'm against your belief. I reject your belief. So I'm atheist. I reject your belief in God, in your God. So let's be specific. I reject your belief in Jesus. So I'm being very specific now. I reject your belief in Jesus. The person who believes in Jesus is going to call me an atheist because I reject the belief in their God, which is Jesus, right? So I'm going to be an atheist to them. But now, in me being an atheist, I didn't do any work. I didn't do anything. I'm just simply not accepting that person's belief because they don't have any evidence for their belief. That's why it is a belief. So I hope y'all get that. That's why it's a belief. That's all I mean by it's a position, which nothing wrong with it, but it's there's no work involved. There's no work involved in being an atheist. Now, if I was an investigator of belief systems, then that goes beyond atheism. See, so if I take the person's belief in Jesus, now I investigate it. I do a study. I want to know why you believe in in Jesus as God or your God is Jesus. I want to know why you accept that with no evidence. And then I go search for some evidence to say, okay, to justify you believe in it or work with you to investigate it. But I'm not going to accept it without the evidence. So although I'm an atheist, but I'm actually putting in some work to investigate it. See, atheists don't do that for the most part. They're not the ones because people don't do that. You're not gonna study something that you don't even believe exists. So that's why you get into different degrees of atheism. You got hard atheists all the way to soft atheists, and they overlap with Gnostics, you know, agnosticism and things like that. That's why you get all this gray area and overlapping because a hard atheist is a person, and I'm paraphrasing, is a person that not only rejects the belief in gods, but they don't even think that it's possible. Like they're definitely not going to do any investigation because in their mind, no such thing does exist, can exist, or will ever exist. So therefore, I'll be wasting my time to even investigate. Those are hard atheists. Those are people who be like, nah, that's some BS right there. I'm not dealing with that at all. Then you got all the way down on the other end that take a position of saying, hey, I don't know. I don't know. I'm agnostic on that. I'm a soft atheist slash gnostic, agnostic, or whatever the case is, right? And so those people you'll find to be more open to investigate or whatever the case is. So anyway, that's that. So I just wanted to say that that's all I meant by lazy. It's a position that doesn't require any work. That's all I mean. And if anybody disagrees with that, then show me. Now I'm sure there's some atheists that put in work in trying to see if there is a God. But that's rare. Most atheists don't believe God exists, so they're not going to be trying to look for anything. That kind of defeats the purpose of being an atheist. And listen, I can show many YouTube videos that supports what I'm saying. That they will say out their mouth that think looking into stuff, investigation stuff. They don't have anything. But anyway, that's all I meant. So just to clarify that up a bit. What was the other thing? So MK, what were you saying? I'm sorry. You said something about scared people being scared of religion.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying that obviously is it because of being either being lazy or not necessarily lazy but not wanting to put in the work to to fight to dive deep into whatever it is and figure out what what religion is, and if it's something that they can actually say, I do not believe in all of these aspects of what is termed as religion. Or is it because some of them actually might actually, when they understand what religion is, and I'm specifically speaking about people who have this particular stance and are actually scholars or researchers, when they dive deep into it. And obviously, we know for a fact that when you dive into religion, you will find that there are actually aspects of religion that is essential to human behaviors and interactions with other human beings. When they dive deep into it and they find these things, they're actually scared that they will actually have to reanalyze their positions and might actually have to shift on their stance on religion as a whole.
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. Um, and to that, I would say that does happen because among some people that demonize religion, there is a underlying sense of wanting to stay free. Like some people see religion as being restrictive, you know, and some religions are. Some bonds and things within populations of people or communities are restrictive when compared to other ones. So, for example, um, in Arab-speaking countries, they adhere to the Islamic belief system, and they establish their networking and social contracts with one another based on the what they know and not know, which is their belief system. So in a Muslim country or an Islamic country, those religious bonds and practices and things like that, um, that are rooted or based on their belief system may appear to be restrictive, and people are like, nah, I'm not trying to even deal with that or whatever. And people look at the Christian belief system and so on and so forth, as restrictive. So some people who demonize religion just kind of blanketly don't like restriction, period. And so some people feel a sense of freedom and liberation and emancipation by demonizing and dogging out religion in that sense. So they run from it. And you can notice this in human behavior, where there's a sense of freedom and not wanting to feel like you're hogtied or tied down, which is a reason why people reject religion. And so my argument is that that's a problem, because what we end up happening is undisciplined people with bad character, people who don't know how to deal with others, don't know how to create relationships and maintain them. There's a lot of people like that, and I'm not pinpointing any given person or small group. This is just among human beings, period. You know, that the society, because the human population is growing, we're supposed to have these things rock solid. But the population growth versus the cultivation of structure and how people bond with one another is disproportionate, to where it's a lot of things going on in the world on a global scale, and then we can narrow it down just to the United States, just to within our country, our state, our neighborhoods, how people don't know how to treat each other, and we play and joke about it. So, for example, in the South, and I wouldn't even say it's just in the South. I will say that just in the past, in my lifetime, we could do, like, when I was young, you could leave your, not that I had a car or anything, but when I was little, I remember adults, you could leave your car door open. Unlocked. You can close your porch, your screen door, but leave your door, your real door open, and things like that. I remember when neighbors talked to one another like you actually knew your neighbors. Now, I'm not saying everybody, because there's people that know their neighbors and stuff, especially depending on how long you live in a neighborhood and whatnot. But notice how all that stuff is deteriorating, though. We're walking around mean mugging each other. Now, I know that it's still, if I compare the North to the South, it's more so still intact in the South than it is in the North. And that's historically the same as well. The North has less of it than the South. That's why they call it Southern hospitality. You know, people wave at each other in the South. And you all know I'm from D.C., so I'm right there, Chocolate City, D.C. I'm from the city. Maryland, lived in D.C. and Maryland. All my grew up, formidable years and everything. Right. I moved down to Georgia, and man, it's a big difference. It's a big difference to me. You know, maybe not in Atlanta, the heart of Atlanta, because that's a city. You know, because a lot of cities are pretty much similar. But Georgia in general, the suburbs and rural Georgia, man, it's like people waving and stuff. You like, man, do I got something on my face or something? Like, what you waving for? People blowing, like tooting their horn a little bit. And you driving, I get nervous. I'm like, why are they blowing? Why are they blowing? Is something on my car? Is my tire flat? I'm like, what's going on? But people are just polite, or whatever the case is. So anyway, um, so yeah, like Monica said, it's too many rules. Religion brings too many rules. But the fact that we even say that is proof positive of what religion actually is. It's it's contracts. It's to establish oaths, contracts, bonds, and things. And if people don't want to fall under those oaths and bonds and stuff, they feel like it's too much and they want to stay out of it. So they demonize religion to hide and stay out of that stuff. And just notice, compare the behavior of people who are anti-religious versus those people who are. Just compare the behavior in this from through the lens of psychology and sociology. Just compare it, and it will speak for itself. Don't listen to me. It'll speak for itself. But let me address this question you have on the screen. Sumo, he says, but woo, don't atheists get their conclusions after doing rigorous research? I'm just trying to find the laziness in their approach. I'm not atheist myself, just curious. So I think I addressed this a bit. Atheists in general do not do rigorous research in trying to find God. Okay, so I mean, that's all I should be. That's all I should be able to say to hopefully that makes sense. You're not going to find atheists out there researching God. That goes against them being an atheist. They're not. You're not gonna find atheists out there researching God. All right, or gods. They're not. I've rubbed elbows and I've talked to many atheists in my days. Okay, in my lifetime, and nine times out of ten, these atheists have not and do not practice an investigation or search for God. It's the opposite. They have taken a stance that God does not exist, cannot exist. These are hard atheists, by the way. Therefore, why should I investigate? Why should I try to study something? Why should I rigorously research something that I don't feel that exists? That's like somebody researching and trying to find out Santa Claus or Peter Pan in their mind. Like, let's set up an institution and some research procedures and standards to research Peter Pan and Never Never Land or Humpty Dumpty. You know what I'm saying? And all that. That's how they're seeing it. And so no. So to answer your question, no. Atheists do not come to conclusions after doing research. Now, on other things, yes, it may be. Because atheists, remember, an atheist is just simply a person who took a stance on against the belief in gods. That's it. So whether they research other things, I'm not speaking to that, because you have atheists that are very good, prominent people that research and study other things. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying they don't do research. Period. I'm saying, but they definitely not going to be researching God.
Real quick, I was just gonna say that, while you were talking, I think some things, to make other people, to make them understand a little better, because I think you explaining all that makes me understand a little better, and actually be able to understand all the different peoples from, that label themselves differently from, on the different spectrums. It would be, if you understand what religion is, and because somebody will be like Mr. Metro said, why do I need God? Why do I need a God? Um, when you research, what other people will define as God, in that sense, you'll understand that. And I think this is why even the culture was brought in, as being synonymous with religion, is because of the different aspects of culture, and then the different aspects of religion, where there's things where you find different things like moral principle, behavior, and things of that nature. So when people correlate these things, they're literally actually just pinpointing some of the aspects of these two things that they misunderstand as, because this has that and that has that, then these two things are the same. But there are those aspects of it that make those things seem like the same, as in culture and religion. Now, why do you need a god? Other people need that god to kind of give them structure of how to behave, what their moral is. So at the end of the day, it's not really the god for you to deny the person's god, but it's the understanding of what that god, the principle behind that god. If the principle behind that god means actually, helps that particular community, or society to actually engage, with among themselves with proper morals, proper ethics, and all of that, then instead of looking at it as God, look at it as that, as a thing that is needed to actually, lay out the foundations of what the moral structure will be in that society. So that is what that God means to them. Now, as the other person who is an atheist also actually does need something else that will actually, help them structure their morals and their behaviors. So it's not really about God versus this, but it's actually what those things actually mean, what, the principles behind those things. And at the end of the day, you find that everybody needs good morals, everybody needs ethics and all that kind of stuff, and behavior, and proper behavior and character. So if somebody needs God as a principle to underlay those things, then it's kind of hard to actually deny that part, but just to understand that that is actually what is being used for that.
Okay, well said. I mean, um, only thing I'll add to that is, I wanna, when I get down to that question, do I need God? I wanna expound on that. But I found this comment funny though. Philetus, he said, right now, if I created a religion that guaranteed you $5 million on rejection of your God, I bet I have the fastest growing church in recorded history. And that's funny because I believe you are right. I believe you're absolutely right, boy. He said $5 million will be, it'll be $5 million loans in small print. So you're gonna collect some interest, boy. Nah, that's funny though, because that's crazy. Uh, it's funny because I could see that happening for real. So Anosha says stance. Yeah, it is. Remember, atheism is a stance. That's all it boils down to. It's just a stance. That's it. Atheism. Atheists are people who subscribe to the stance that we call atheism. But I've already had conversations about that. It's really narrow. It's really narrow. People don't want to admit that it's a narrow stance though. It's really against certain. It's against a certain conceptualizations of God. So for example, without the Abrahamic belief systems, atheism would would barely be something that is talked about. You know, really, when you think about it, a lot of atheists are people, like when you think of atheists, what comes with those thoughts is the Abrahamic belief systems automatically by default. You remove the Abrahamic belief systems, you barely have enough things to even have a community of atheists, so to speak. You know, in terms of how and what it is now, what it's become now. All right, you know, I've had those conversations in the past already. So I'm trying to get down to uh, within this chat here. Sumo says it takes a lot of work to get to a point where you ask for evidence from the get go. Considering a lot of us have passed with Abrahamic systems. Yeah, listen, the enemy of belief, the enemy of a belief system. See, this is why science and beliefs, and I want to correct this too. Science is not at odds with religion. And I know that statement is another one of those pot stirrers. But like my other statement, no one can refute the statement itself. It just takes time to marinate and for people to understand what I'm saying. Science is not against religion. Science is the opposite of beliefs, not religion. Okay, because remember, my stance and my point is to separate belief from religion. Once we do that, then science is not an enemy of religion; it is an enemy of beliefs. Because science, even the very word science from uh, sire, I believe, is the word. I might be mispronouncing that. It means to know, and science itself is two things. It's a set of tools. It's like a tool chest. And those tools of science that we're calling science are tools that we use to know when we know something. So it's like an epistemological tool bag. That's what science is. It's a set of tools that we use to know things. We call it the scientific method. We have certain scientific methods for different research questions and stuff like that. Not all scientific methods are the exact same, depending on what you're investigating and stuff like that. You may use a different set of tools, but the underlying scientific method is pretty much uniform. Those are tools that we use to gain knowledge. And that's the word science is the word for knowledge, to know. So science is the domain of evidence. So now check this out. Belief is the domain of the lack of evidence. So they're opposite. To believe something, you don't need evidence. It's the act of accepting something that you don't know. That's what believing is. You just hold it dear. It's something you hold dear without knowing. Once you know something, you no longer have to believe it. So belief and knowledge do not occupy the same space at the same time. You either believe something or you know it. All right? Now, we're all born ignorant of everything, basically. And then as we live our life, we acquire knowledge through multiple avenues and experience. But in a given lifetime, we're never going to know everything. So our entire life is pursuing knowledge. So that fact being said, we all have beliefs. We all have things that we have accepted without knowing. But the difference is there are people who are comfortable being in that state. And then there's people who are not. So people whip out the toolbox called science, which is the toolbox of evidence, and they get busy because they don't like being in a state of ignorance. Then you have people who don't mind being in a state of ignorance and they fall in love with it. Hence the word believe. Believe is to hold dear, to hold in reverence and in love of something without knowing. So some people fall in love with that state, other people don't. Okay, so I hope y'all get that. And that's the difference. And so once we know, we don't have to believe. And that's just it. So anyway, that's the difference. I'm not trying to keep on that. I'm trying to get down to these other comments here. I want to get to the point, to the one that said, do we know, why do I need God, or something like that? I'm still going down. Yeah, Monica says too many rules. Yep. Okay, in Metro, all right. It says, oh, Mr. Metro, I think religion, spirituality, and God are all a big waste of time, but I think people are welcome to do as they feel. Okay. Now, that's a whole conversation. Your statement is a whole conversation because you feel that religion, spirituality, and God are a big waste of time. Now, I'm going to point out something. I want you to notice that based on your statement, you're putting religion, spirituality, and God on the same level, and then you're categorically putting those three things on the same level and then categorically throwing them in the trash with the part of your statement by saying a big waste of time. So if I were to analyze your thinking on that based on your statement, you see all three of those things as trash, like a waste of time. And I'm here, and my stance is that that's a problem when people do that. I don't think we should do that. We need to treat each one differently as what it is. Because religion is not a waste of time if you actually know what religion is. You have a religion whether you know it or not. You have a religion. Okay? Spirituality, the word spirit, spiritual, and spirituality are corresponding words to psyche, psychological, and psychology. You have that as well, whether you know it or not. And God is this umbrella term that has many multiple pathways of concepts that represent it. So that's a whole discussion in and of itself, because a God to one person may not be a God to the next person. So God gets very, very intricate. So to kind of just categorically lump them all together, to me, is very, very problematic. And I think we should stop doing that. That's lazy. That's easy. That's lazy to just go ahead and just that's that sweeping broom type of thing. So I'm just saying, Mr. Metro, I don't think that we should do that. I think we should slow those conversations down and dig into each one of those things. Okay? What religion is, what spirituality actually is, spiritual spirituality, what religious and religion and religious, and doing things religiously. What does that really mean? I think we should really get into that better than to categorically do that. Atheism is not an act or practice, as Simplified. It's a state of non-belief. Yeah, it's a stance. It's a stance that, like I said, it's atheism is a stance. Really, it's not. It doesn't require people to do anything. It's basically a stance. That's all it is. I mean, I can't put any. Now we could whip out some documents. Let's see. Mr. Metro, can you hit the link? Help me. Oh, okay. Yeah, nobody's on the panel. Wait a minute, let me make sure it's pinned up there. Yeah, it's pinned to the top. If you all were looking for the panel link, it's pinned to the top. The panel link is pinned to the top. I'm gonna say this again. Panel link is pinned to the top. Make sure y'all come on the panel, because I don't want this to turn into a 5-hour. We're already at 2 hours. I don't want this to turn into a 5-hour video. So now I'm gonna have more of these videos, obviously, so we don't have to cram everything in one video. So if I don't get around to talking about anything, we definitely gonna do this again. I'm just going down the list, y'all. Posterior thought. It is a conscious act and practice, a decision that has been made with certain behaviors or lack thereof. Okay, Sister Fa, I think where you're coming from is more so the choice to become an atheist, not so much atheism itself, though. So I don't know. Maybe y'all clarify that later in the comments. So man, I must be behind, because y'all still talking about the South. Y'all still talking about the South. I mentioned that. Miss Lamb says, would y'all religious folks have bad behavior? Okay, you gotta explain that. Religious folks have bad behavior. You should do a survey. So wait. Let me clarify something. Yeah, let me clarify this. I don't want anybody to walk away from this conversation thinking that I'm saying religious people don't have bad behavior or can't have bad behavior. So I don't want anybody walking away thinking that. So all right, let me repeat. Let me break this down one more time. Religion is a set of binding contracts. So religion is the glue itself, is the contractual things itself. Okay? All organizations, you got different levels of groups, different quantities of people within different groups. So you have small organizations, larger institutions, you have a neighborhood with people, you have like a gang. A gang could come together to do things where other people would consider bad stuff, but they have a religion because the religion is what glues the gang to be a gang. Religion sets forth the definition of what something is because of the glue that creates whatever that thing is. You understand? So it's not, so I don't want to get caught up into the good versus evil debate when it comes to that. So I don't want, what I was saying though earlier that may cause people to think that that's what I'm saying. So let me clarify what I said earlier is, if you were to observe the behaviors of the social community, the online social media community, you will see that, or I narrowed it down to the circus community, the conscious community. You will see that people who are anti-religious, who forsake all types of social bonds and things like that, or have a very narrow view of them, they tend to have bad character within the confines of, this thing we call conscious community. That's what I was saying. Now, if y'all need proof, hey, we could set it up, because I'm like I said, I always say demonstration beats conversation. So if y'all want me to get a series of video clips and how people behave and how people treat each other on these YouTube streets and stuff like that, then put me to task. If try me on that, because I'm sure that you all know what I'm talking about. Don't don't act like you don't know. All right, so here we go. Mr. Metro, he says, "Why do I need God? Um, which God? See that question? You say which God, or why do I need a God? And you're saying a God. Period. So it just depends on. I think Emiket hinted to this before. It depends on what's the reality behind God. Like what's the concept behind God. So there's different. So we use the same word for many different concepts. So even though the form of the word is God, whether it's capitalized, initial caps, all caps, lowercase, or whatever the case is, but God, that form of that word is used to represent multiple concepts, differing concepts, and so we have to be careful about that, because what is a God to one person may not be a God at all to the next person. And so if you say, why do I need a God? And so let me just bring it down to an example. If you conceptualize a God like something like Santa Claus, or something like I said, Peter Pan, or something like Spider-Man, or whatever the case is, then your question, why do I need Santa Claus? Why do I need Spider-Man? Why do I need whatever? You can narrow it down. And then we wouldn't word things like that. Like nobody needs Spider-Man. Nobody needs Peter Pan. Nobody needs Santa Claus. You see what I'm saying? So like, why do I need a God, and things like that? That's a whole long thing. You have to tease that out. You have to fill in what is the God in that question specifically. Because if I make hygiene a God, then you will substitute God for hygiene and say, why do I need hygiene? Good hygiene. I'm like, well, if you want to get along with people and you want to get a decent job to make some decent money and stuff, you better have some good hygiene. So you're gonna need that God there, buddy. You're gonna need that hygiene God. And I'm being extreme with it, but that's just so you can see what I'm referring to, or why it's important to understand um, what's meant by God in all these situations. Monica says, "Wujao, you that the correct information, but that is not how religious and believers are acting." Yeah, Mo, you're gonna have to explain. I think I'm not clear on what you're saying. Uh, Wait, we love what you're saying, but on the grounds, those folks are not behaving in that manner. Yeah, Mo, you're saying that about religious people. Yeah, I think I cleared it up already. And I'm far behind on this chat. But I don't want people to mistake that me saying religion equals good versus evil. In that sense, religion is good, not religion is evil. Don't don't take my words to mean that. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that every society, every grouping of human beings has a religion and needs a religion to be that group. Because what religion is the web, the glue, the contracts, the bond, and all of the above that binds things together. You can see that in the very history of the word itself. Religare. Meaning perpetual, to go back perpetually, repetitively, and then ligare, which is to bond, to tie, to glue. Okay? So that's that. Now, if people bind themselves and glue together, because you have criminal enterprises, right? So you have people that may come together to form contracts and bonds and bind themselves together to do bad things to other people. Okay, I don't want people, I don't want anybody to take what I'm saying further than what I'm saying. All right, religion is that. So we got Uncle Majed, peace. I don't know if your mic is working. If you can hear me, we can't
You
we
hear
can't
me?
hear you. So there we go. Yep. Yep, there we go. Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can in just listening to the program and think. Um, I know if it's a good time, I want to dash and about certain things
Okay.
you say earlier on. You know. Um, earlier it have a next meaning for the meaning something in something like that.
No, I was saying that the word Jed is, there's a couple of words in the Egyptian language that is the word Jed. Like we would pronounce it as Jed. And so the one that, like, on your, for your name and on your picture, that's the Jed pillar. That's the one for the pillar. The word that means stability. So yeah. But there's another word Jed that means to speak, to say. So when I say Jed Medu in, Diani and Ek, blah 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 blah. What I'm saying is words spoken by. So Jed F, he said, or Jed NF, he
Mm-hmm.
said, Jed Ness, she said. So that's the word to say, Jed, as well. So those are
All
two
right,
different Jeds.
because the reason I was saying is I wanted to find out if or does it have like a semantic connection, like where is it same like maybe sin is to say something, and then you have the meaning about a dread being stability. If it's trying to like tell you to be like stable in your speech or something like that. With
No, that's interesting that you say that because historically, have let me ask you this: have you heard of the word neologism? You ever heard that before?
neologism, I think I heard you
Yeah.
using it. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
neologism, a neologism is it has the word neo in there, meaning new, and then logos. So it's how new words are come about, right? And so historically in ancient times, um, because vocabulary start off, very small and limited, and then they start to grow as the population gains more experience, discover new things, and so on and so forth. Let me let Monique in. Um, uh, they have to expand their vocabulary, and so what group populations of people do? They take words that existing words that sound alike, that may be homophones, and then they create a similar underpinning concepts. Anything that kind of seems the same, they will start to use it that way, like how you were just saying, and then they will kind of relate it together, and that's when you get into semantics and punning, or paronymy, what's called paronymy, and it forms a semantics across the language, and then even in multiple languages. So some of those things do exist, like how you were saying. Some of those things uh, definitely exist that way, but we would have to. It's more of a case by case basis because that's not always the case. That's not the norm. The way the default of how all words are formed. So the only way we could detect that, if you raise that as a research question, uh, along the lines of, does the word jed, that means pillar or stability, does it have any connection with the word jed, meaning to speak, to say, and we were to go research that would be, we would have to get into historical linguistics and start to do comparative linguistics and things like that. That would be a diachronic study. So yeah. Now to answer
Right,
your
thanks.
question from me, at this moment, I don't know that there's any connection. Yeah, I don't know there's any connection.
Right,
Yep.
and I think I was thinking, what do you think about the similarities or differences between the acts in Kemet and a saint like Christianity?
Okay, you broke up. Just say it again. What's the difference between? Just say it again, please.
I was thinking about the similarities or differences between acts and from like when you turn into on saints in Christianity.
Man, I don't know if I understand. You said the axe. Uh, are you talking about the axe like a chopping
Yeah,
axe, like a
like
like a wood axe?
no the AKH na when you bag go when you go to meet
Oh, I
when
got
you
you.
bag go meet your car and you turn into in Egyptian afterlife. Yeah,
Okay, I got you. Okay, and okay, I got that now. And compared to what?
to like saints in Christianity, a saint.
Oh, a saint. I got you. Okay, all right. Now I got you. I understand. So the ox and the saints. Um.
Mm.
Well, I mean, I don't think that they're like in terms of concept of a deified Ak, or an ak with the saint. I don't think that they can be comparable because like saint, for example, Saint Peter, Saint Paul, Saint Luke, they basically sanctified or turned into saints all of Jesus's disciples and things like that. Whereas in ancient Egypt, the Ak is something totally different because remember the Ak is one of the components of what makes a human being, or the anatomy of the human being. We have the Kat, the Kaibit, the Ka, the Ren, the Sa, you know, the Ak, the Sekhem, the Ba, and the Ib, and all those kinds of things. And all of those different components had their function and purpose, but collectively they formed the human being at different stages. So at death, you no longer, the Kat expires, but the other aspects have their functions even without the Kat being present. But in Christianity, when someone's a saint, it doesn't have that parallel breakdown or correspondence like that. So I wouldn't connect
The
those.
correspondence what the correspondence what I was trying to tease out is that it come like they say that you have on you're going into heaven with however it is, free from probably other souls waiting on judgment day or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, you had to kind of elaborate on that then, because my understanding of the saints is different. Like the information around, how saints are treated in Christianity and Catholicism and stuff like that is different than what the concept of the Ak is to the ancient Egyptians. The Aku, you know, and things like that. Because yeah, that's different. That's different. So I don't see the parallel. I don't see the correlation there. Other than both deal with something other than the human body, the physical body. But I don't see the correlation there. I don't
All
see that.
right, yeah. Well, no, scene. I was just
Yeah.
the only correlation is really like a soul or whatever in the after with the deity or whatever. And that was it.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about them. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, in that sense, I can see why you say that, but I don't think there's any other connection other than that. That's like a coincidental correlation there, because they both deal with see what now what we have to be careful of is not to make synonymous heaven with the afterlife, the Christian concept of heaven with the ancient Egyptian concept of the afterlife. You know, because remember now, and this is a whole conversation I would love to have, but we got to start off a live stream with
Mm.
with this. But remember, in to the ancient Egyptians, and not just them, is many community groups of people. The afterlife, to live after life, the only thing of a human being that lives after their life expires, that we call it death, is their identity. As long as somebody who is alive on the planet can remember the identity of someone who once lived on the planet, then that person who's dead, the once lived one, will live on, will have an after their life, what we call the afterlife. And so the concept of heaven in Christianity is a place that you go and whatnot, whereas the actual afterlife to these cultures is actually the ib, the mind of the living. So where dead people exist to these cultures is in the mind of the living. So heaven would be in the
Um,
mind of the living, if if we were to use the word heaven.
well, that way
Because if nobody who's
say,
alive, go ahead.
saying it sounding very,
Hmm.
I'm saying that sounding very interesting. That sounding very interesting. But they was kind of looking through the narrative. It's called the pyramid text, and
Hmm. Yeah.
when they and the passage of the sun through the through the day and the night passage of the sun. You know what I mean? They go and
Hmm.
meet with us and regenerate and come to
Yep.
Aket and come through and look at the souls of like the deceased people
Hmm.
will rise, would be with us and then rise in morning. So it come like so the afterlife would then come like every morning. It just go nah, I mean, and
Yeah.
the acts would be like right with the sun or could go about in the day and then they go back to the whatever it is at night and thing.
Hmm. Well, once we elaborate and break down what those things, what the reality is behind those. Remember, all of that is figurative expressions, and we would have to sit down and get to the reality behind all of them, and tease that out. Then we would know what is meant by traveling through the 12 gates of the Duat, the 12 caverns of the Book of Earth, and so on and so forth. What these 12 gates represent. What is the deity? Why is the deity there? What happens at each of those gates, which is a certain sphere, and certain activities take place? What actually happens? What does it mean to join together when Ra joins with Usir and Usir joins with Ra? And Usir stays behind and Ra continues the journey to come forth again on the next day by way of the scarab beetle, all that other kind of stuff. We would have to dig in and actually un you know uncover the realities behind those figurative expressions. But we can't take the figurative expressions as if they're literal, and then compare that. So we had to dig into those things first. And like I said, that's what I said. These are conversations I would love to have, and and I'm definitely down with that. But these are conversations that would definitely have to be, really, really nice and structured, because there's a lot to tease out from that. Just with what you just said, with the Ak, and the Ba coming visiting, the going through the so-called um, false door, where the mummified body, the Sa, the reason why they mummified the body, the reason why they did this and stuff like that, and with what I said, where the afterlife is really the minds of the living, and the only thing that actually exists in the minds of the living is the Ren of the person, which is the identity. We translate it as name, but it's really the identity of the person that survives in the minds of the living, which is why so much importance is placed on the the form of that identity, which we call the name. So they say, remember my name, call his name. And we set up shrines and things to remember the person's identity. And we summarize their identity in the enunciation and pronunciation of their name, in the remembrance. And so as long as somebody who's alive remembers somebody who's dead, they have an afterlife. But the moment that nobody who's living, and I'm talking about the whole planet. So if right now we have almost 8 billion people on the planet, if nobody who is alive remembers somebody who is dead, no matter how far back you go, that dead person ceased to exist. There's no afterlife for that person. So the afterlife is not a guaranteed eternity. It's only eternal as long as somebody who is living can remember it. So this is why the kings, they always say forever, forever and ever. They say um, uh, Jed, or they say Ankh Mi Ra, live like Ra forever, Jed Nahi, forever and ever, or forever and eternity. and they protected the king's name and plastered it everywhere so that everybody will always remember the name of the king, because the king was one of the most important people in the society. They even have a king's list. They put the king's names and all the previous kings on walls and stuff like that, so they could be remembered. And to take somebody out of existence, they erase the name. They carve out the name. So you see evidence of that, where people try to carve out and replace the name of certain kings to, like, especially Akhenaten. They try to carve his whole existence out, so where he has no afterlife, which literally means that so nobody will remember him. But as we know right now, we're still remembering him right to this very day. Ramses right now, Khufu, all of them, they still have an afterlife. You know how many ancient Egyptians who don't have an afterlife because we don't know their names? We don't know anything about them. We don't even know their existence. So they don't have an afterlife.
No, when you say carve their names just now, it kind of strike back a little memory in my mind. I know that if it's, you remember when they say the statues, but to cut the breath life out of the statue, like to make the kid, like the statue not live again. That's a real scene, or that's like is that a real scene?
You breaking up, man. I don't like we had this problem last time, but I think I got what you said. Are you talking about taking off, like defacing the statues and stuff? You talking about that?
Yeah, when they used to deface nose and the statues and to like shut
Yeah.
off the afterlife breath of that.
Yes. Yes, that's connected to what I'm saying, but not the exact. So just to explain that a little bit, the 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 chipping away at the nose is really the act of preventing the perpetual life of a person. It's a figurative way of representing causing the person to die. And the reason why that is because in reality now we're moving away from figurative and we're dealing with reality now. Um, when a person is sleeping, what we call sleep, their eyes are closed and their mouth is closed, but yet they still live. And so the only thing that is sustaining their life or our lives as we sleep is breathing in air and breathing out air through our nose. And so the nose is the portal for the perpetual existence of an unconscious person. And so they feel if symbolically, if they chop off the nose, which is to block the portal or is to prevent the portal of air, it's a sign of an act of killing the person beyond the subconscious, so they can no longer live. So the act of defacing was practiced by the Egyptians themselves. And people think that white people broke off the noses of Egyptian statues, and that's not true. I mean, I'm not saying that white people didn't do any of that, but that practice is old as Egypt itself. They try to remove the names so that people can't have an afterlife and be remembered, and they deface the statues because they looked at these tuts or these images, replicas of people in the statues, and they disfigured them to break their noses off, so that the life could not be perpetual. All right, and so we just gotta understand their mode of thinking and how they express themselves, and see the further back in history we go, we'll find that indigenous populations, there was a thin line, and they danced and played with figurative and literal, figurative expressions versus literal, and they did all that out of necessity. And today we don't need to do it So we don't do it the same way. We do it out of entertainment and fun, where we just play on words and stuff like that. Whereas in ancient times, it was a matter of survival that people created figurative expressions. Because remember, writing is only 5,000 years old, and humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, is roughly 200,000 years old. So in the history of humans, writing is very, very, very young. Writing is almost like writing happened yesterday. So how did humans survive and store knowledge without recording it on any recording devices? Writing, tablets, whatever, whatever, whatever. It was all oral. So they had to have a way to store information in the very act of speaking. So they created figurative speech, figurative expressions, which is a way to store information. And it spills over today. We still do it today. Even in science, even in hard sciences today, they still use figurative expressions to this very day. It's just that we don't rely on it to survive like people once did. So anyway, I say all that to say that a lot of things are figurative, and people, we just got to be careful today. People who study Egypt, love Egypt for whatever the reason they do. We got to be careful not to become maniacs of it and romanticize and just overlook the work that needs to be put in. We have to really, really look into the realities behind these figurative expressions. People saying the ankh is the fallopian tubes and the uterus of a woman, and and that the twisted flax is the double helix human DNA. People just go way, way off on stuff. There's people who
But
literally
you
think
know,
that the Netcher,
the
go ahead.
somewhere in so, because like in you see like how the fallopian tube and thing, and you do find that so that, but it also have the symbol known as the Tiet, which is a kind of must be a fallopian tubes or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, the Ankh is
No, but
the
the
sim
symbol the Tiet, nah. You know the
yeah the
TYET
yeah the T
is
what they
like hang
attribute to.
with the hands down.
Well, that's what it looks like. See, if we want to go by what things look like, I could do that for a lot of glyphs. But the teat
No, no,
is associated with
I don't even mean
Aset.
that it look like the anchor. I say that it related to like a knot or something, or the Tiet knot or something. So that kind of
Yeah.
it's something to do with the reproductive system scene, you know?
Well, that's one of the hypotheses. Yeah, but I don't know if the verdict is not out on that, because people are still, scholarship is still open on that, as far as it being the sexual organs and stuff like that, as far as the teat, because it's associated with Osset. They say Osset's belt buckle, or knot, the knot of Osset, or Isis. Isis is knot, and it's usually red, and things like that. So it's associated with women, the female reproductive organs and stuff like that. So then the Ankh, people do the same thing with the Ankh. They say represents man, woman, and child, or the ovaries and the womb, uterus, and the vagina, and all these other kinds of things. And but they can't support that
From
in
your
the text.
from your research, I think the Ankh was the primordial and then the Ankh.
Well, the Ankh itself, as like all of the glyphs, are replicas of real things, whether it's the flora or fauna in the Egyptian in Egypt's territory of in Africa, or even man-made objects. So flora, fauna, and man-made objects. Um, So the Ankh, so all of these things that we see are images of something. Whether it's an amalgamation, but it's an image of something. And so the Ankh is a rope when you look at it. If you look at the history, if you look at the oldest different forms of the Ankh, it's a rope. And it makes sense that the words that symbol stands for has to do with things that are connected to ropes. So, for example, the very word for prisoner has the word "unk" in it because a prisoner is identified with somebody being bounded or tied. The word for oath is the word for "unk." When you take a verbal oath, you're tying your words to something. And so, oh, Monica, oh Mo, you could. I thought you were having trouble with your with your audio. You come back on here. We're not trying to hog the mic from you, Mo. I wanna hear from you. So come back on here. Don't run from us like that. Don't do that. Anyway, till she come back here, let me just finish up. So there's a word "unk" for oath. There's a word "unk" for prisoner. Um, and you can see how words can be binded and tied, not a literal tie, because words are not literal objects to be tied with a physical rope, but the conceptualization behind that. Then you have the word "unk" for sandal strap, which is literally a piece of fabric on the bottom of your foot strapped to your ankles and to the instep of your foot. That's the word "unk." And so we can see that the symbol or the rope itself has some kind of semantic association with how it was used in representing it within these words. So, and then we understand "unk" as even in the shape of a shenu, which is a related to the shenu, and the shenu is definitely a rope, which encase or in houses the name of the kings. The shenu
Right.
we call the cartouche,
Yeah.
and you have the shin, which is also the rope. You got the shin, shenu, and all that kind of stuff related to the unk. And when you look at them visibly, when you look at them how they're carved and what the Egyptians did, you could clearly see that they were ropes. So why did they use ropes for that? You know, and so they would draw the uterus. Why would they represent the uterus and stuff with a rope instead of drawing it what it is, like they did the tongue? A tongue is a tongue. The phallus is the phallus. You know what I'm saying? The penis is the penis. When they want to draw a penis, they they drew that bad boy. They didn't have to. A tongue is a tongue. The heart, they drew a heart. So um, the leg, they drew the leg. You see what I'm saying? So it's when they did the trachea and the lungs, they drew that stuff. They like we see that. So anyway, like I said, when people make these associations, there's not enough evidence uh, to sway for that to be the thing. So that's why I say the verdict is not out on stuff like that. I don't really involve myself with that. But I see we have Mo back. So Mo, I don't want to ignore anything you want to share. So I definitely want to pass you the mic.
Hotel. I didn't
What's
want.
that?
I was displaying my good character. I didn't want to shift the.
So you were displaying religion? That's what you saying? Are you telling me that you're religious?
Listen, I forgot what I was gonna. I think I was because you guys were having didn't want to stop that, but um I hope that you do the presentation on the afterlife earlier. I think that would be really good, a really good video for the archive. Something in the archives. It's breaking it down in that slow walking with the brother. But oh, only thing I was talking about in the chat. Um, I mean I agreed and I definitely understood everything you were saying in reference to religion. how it all should work. And the pushback against all the day, I agree that that's probably um, it, it's if under that it would be a better in our communities. Um, have I think that happened is that people manipulated the whole religious own personal gains, and that's how it got kind of out of control with people. That in some cases, many people don't want to kind of that they flap it in the winds and they don't have a sense of belonging to uh whether it's a church, but people manipulate those parameters or the um religion or belief that started to me, and that's why you have a lot of people that leave it, or we operate from an individual's perspective. You got neighborhoods, nobody know each other, nobody talk to each other, everybody saying because people just kind of no idea for the wrong reasons. I
Okay,
think
listen.
that's
No, you said a mouthful, and I don't find any no lies out your mouth with that, because that's very very true. That what we're calling religious institutions have been abused, and they get they we have another word for it too, cultish, cults. And
mm,
they people get cultish, they get into personality worshiping, and it is definitely abused. So you're absolutely right. And that's why I said what I said. Like I'm identifying the problem, and then offering, I'm offering a solution path where we need to separate belief from religion and then start to analyze them separately, as opposed to just lump them together and just categorically try to throw everything in the garbage. you know because there are a lot of things, like people abuse fire, although we need fire. We need fire, but people can abuse it. The whole handgun debate, people can use guns to as protection or hunting or whatever case is, but then some people can use guns to murder and kill people, justifiably or not, and stuff like that. So, like anything else, these things can be abused, and they often are. So you're right. Religion is definitely one of those things that can be leveraged, and people can get taken advantage of. And like just the other day, I think for the very first time, I saw what's the guy's name? What's his name? Joel Osteen. Joe, is that his name?
yeah, that's him.
Joel.
He's one.
Yeah,
Joel, J O
yeah,
J. Yeah.
yeah. Osteen or whatever. Yeah, I knew he was a prominent, a prominent person in the church community, and I know he had a big church. But the other day, like about a week ago, was my first time actually watching one of his things and looking at the size of the audience and stuff like that. He has a church that holds over 16,000 people at one time,
Yeah.
and within a week, I think they have like I forget how many hundreds of thousands of people, and within a week's time, with all the different events and sermons that they give throughout the week and everything like that, and the amount of money that's
Right.
involved with all of that. You know, at one point, the network of the church and the structure and that setup was very, very um, benevolent, very, very positive, very, 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 very useful for the community. It was the lifeline of the community. But then over time, people saw that, and people take advantage of it. Some people will claim a church and start a church, register with a state, and then get a 501c3 just to kind of manipulate and funnel, finagle things, on the basis of religion and charity and things like that. So yeah, I agree with you 100% with that. So yeah, I mean
Can
that
you
that happens.
right? Can you go back? When I think you said that the after. I think you said that the after you was talking about it being figurative, um, something in reference to the mind. What they in? Yeah, I don't think. Well, maybe you shouldn't do it now, but yeah, this is a big way into you breaking out some of that, because I think even with just some of the conversations, um, with the others trying to uh uh say statement and doing comparing and contrasting to information to life being one of the conversation and breaking it out and how it actually is from the Kemet standpoint. I think that what you're just bringing up and how people look at figurative versus literal and making um, people trying to compare figurative with literal information to say that
Yeah,
it's the same. That's probably why I want you to do a presentation so I can review it.
yeah. I would love to do that, and I kind of touch on it in bits and pieces, in different videos already. But I do want to
Right.
have a focused conversation about that though, where that's all we talk about, and I think that would be really good because to kind of merge that what we were saying before with what you just said though. I want to go back, right? Um, like this whole Egypt thing that within the conscious community, um, it's highly overlapped with Christian clothing. This Christian type of vibe, and I know that people, there's a word, Egyptomania, right? Where people are zealous and have infatuation with Egypt and stuff like that. Egyptomaniacs. It was like some people try to use it as a pejorative term, but it was like a term who people who look at Egypt and study that and deal with Egypt a lot. It was Egyptomania. It was like that was like a like hysteria, Egyptomania, whatever, that kind of thing. And so what happens is, like, at least in the conscious community, people have taken, and it didn't just happen, so it's like a slow progression, but people have taken Egypt and ancient Kemet, or ancient Egypt or Kemet, they have taken it and have kind of Christianized it, or deal with Egypt through a Christian type of lens. And so it has this kind of slight Christian feel to it. And I think that people who study ancient Egypt and stuff like that in the conscious community are getting lumped together, and they're getting this pushback and stuff because of that, because of what's those things that are happening. That's what I see. And the reason why I bring that up is because when you mention the afterlife and stuff, people who believe in the afterlife, if you have a conversation like I have with different people, when I listen to people, they're describing the afterlife very similar to how a Christian would describe the beliefs that they have, with the biblical beliefs and stuff and things like that.
Right. And they threw
And
that
they
on
and they're and
the
mhm.
ground, not like people just, just outside of YouTube, so they've demonized, going back to the whole church deal, they've demonized Egypt from that perspective. So if you say anything in reference to Egypt, they just go crazy. But then they'll say, "Oh, but Christian can't, it's the same thing." Please break that down, because I got a whole bunch of folks, friends outside of
Well,
YouTube that just really,
well, let
I
me
hate
say
when
this.
they call it the
There's
devil.
a
I'm like, how you
Yeah, yeah, they demonize. They got that whole really really good song, man. My favorite version of it and singer of it is Aretha Franklin. Mary, don't you weep.
Yeah.
Mary. I mean, Mary, don't you weep. That song alone demonizes Egypt. You know, uh, the Pharaoh's army and stuff. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Martha, don't you moan. The Pharaoh's
Yeah.
army, swallowed up and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, and that's a really really good song too. But um, but so here's the thing. I think there's a debate still on, but there's a debate coming up between Garfield and the brother Jabari. Now I don't know if it's still scheduled to happen, but I believe their main debate topic is whether or not Christianity is stolen from Egypt. And
Right.
ever since I became aware of that discussion being scheduled to happen, I kind of stayed away from talking about that because I would spoil it. I'm gonna tell you that straight up and down. If I start talking about that, I will spoil it. And soon as that event take place and after it, that's when I'm gonna go ham on the topic, because there's a lot of things that could be unpacked with all of that. Not Garfield and Jabari themselves, but that whole topic of Christianity stealing from Egypt or and whatnot, and how people are behaving today when it comes to Egypt and associating it with Christianity, trying to tie Jesus with Horus or Jesus with Osiris,
Yeah,
and Isis with the
this is
Virgin Mother, and the cross with the Ankh, and all these other kinds of things, and then how people are treating the Egyptian culture, and you got African Americans who are trying to live in Egyptian culture, but it's heavily Christianized a bit, and that's the criticism that they're getting, you know, when people do that. So there's a lot to talk about, and so I just haven't really talked about it because one the event, and then I don't have much time to do that like I want to. So,
you
but
have a
to
video
get to what you were
on
saying, say it again.
yeah. You have a video on the characters already, right? But when I say characters, I mean um the deities and the players that get brought up a lot um in the whole. Don't you have a video?
I don't know if I did a
I think
specific
this
video with
yeah. I think this
with that.
debate this time would be it's gonna be commentary on it, but I think this time it's gonna make for really good content for people to understand um both, because I think that prematurely people jumping out one personal behaviors versus, as you was mentioning earlier, the religion. It's in a religion, not a belief itself. And I think for content purposes, be a reference point for like new individuals who real substance information, so they don't go around spewing the wrong information. Right now, boy, there's a whole bunch of stuff all over the place, and I don't know much, but I do know some people just getting tripped up in their own conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And that's I hear it too. I haven't. That's what I'm saying. I haven't had time to really pay attention like I would need to talk about it. Well, I mean, at least with what people are saying. But in general, I'm definitely gonna have these conversations. But I'm gonna wait till after the event to really go in on the conversations, because then I'll have a basis to 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 spring off of. Like I can listen to both sides of the discussion between Garfield and Jabari, and then I can chime in as use that as a base, and then chime in on the things that from what I know and things already, you know. So because there's a lot to say, I could say right now, about all of that kind of stuff, So yeah, but I know where the pushback is coming from. I know there is. We have to just be honest. There is a tendency for people to take these, especially with Egypt, take Egypt and like clothe it up with these Christian types of things, and then practice it in that way. And just from my studies and stuff, we shouldn't be doing stuff like that though. We should be skillful enough to study a culture, whether it's contemporary to us living now or in ancient times, respect it enough to study it and to pull out everything about it and analyze it, and then whatever is useful to us today to admittedly use it, or form a basis for something. um and that's cool. Like
You
like
have
we
a
we
you
could
have an
we can do that.
example of where you're talking about Uja.
Oh, you broke up. Say it again.
I was asking if you have a example of where you're talking about in terms of like somebody Christianizing Kemet.
Yeah, okay. So all right, I'll give you an example. One of the proselytizing tools that's used today is to take somebody that is reared in Christianity, whether they go to church a lot or not. It's just somebody who has a Christian background, and when they get wind that they're kind of open, they are seeking, they're a seeker at this point. They're usually introduced to ancient Egypt, and the bridge is paved for them to come from that Christian rearing, even though they may not be like a diehard Christian, and they bridge over into Egypt by giving these so-called parallels and correlations. Jesus, did you know, brother? Jesus is really Horus. Horus is the savior, of within Egypt, and this, that, and the third. And the devil is Satuk and Set, and what is this, that, and the third. And so they'll try to bridge that gap by creating these correlations to bring people over from that curiosity state of being reared in Christianity over into a Kemetic thing. And I see this all the time. I see it happening all the time. People will overlay Christianity with Egypt to appeal to that kind of crowd and those kind of people. They will even go as far as to go into the Bible and start pulling out some quotes and say, "See, that's Egypt," or say, "See, the cross really came from the Ankh," or they'll look at the word "emi," and I wish I had it that I could quickly show it on the screen, where it's two planks of wood that spell out the
I
word
think I think
"emi." Go ahead. Or
I
no,
was
let me give a better one.
saying I
They'll
think
say they'll say the god Amen or Amun in Egypt is found in the Bible. In the book of Revelation says the God Amen, the first witness, that and the third, or whatever the case is. Or Hebrews, they in their prayers, and Muslims in their prayer Amin, and Hebrews Amenah is from the God Amen, and stuff like
I
that. See, they know these
I think
secrets. These are
Uja, some
secrets.
of some of these notions and thing is come from the academia, you know, in terms of like actual, like somebody might in there in the analysis of something, you know, like some I was reading said, and you have a book, the History of Egypt, and inside there he was saying a correlation between Ptah and except for the logos and certain things like that, now the word God, you know them kind of
Yeah.
things. So some of those
Yeah.
Christianity or Abrahamic things having roots in Kemet is not some is actually be born in like literature or whatever. You know, it's not really, it's not necessarily styling or something, you know.
Yeah. I agree with you. So yes, I didn't mention so much so the source of these notions. It's just that that's what occurs. You know, people read these books, and so I'm sharing something on the screen in case people are not familiar with this text here. Um, Let me see, make it big so everybody can see it though. Uh, I would recommend people to get this particular book if you want to know like a summary of some of the claims related to Egypt and Christianity and some periphery uh, systems and information. This book right here by Stephen Thompson or Stephen Thompson. It's called Ancient Egypt Facts and Fictions. And in here is exactly what you were saying, Ankoma, is one of the good things that the author does in this book is that he will say what people say, and then he'll explain why they say what they say or how it became popular, and then the third section of each point is he'll go over what they call it the primary text, but it's not actually the primary because it's like a translation, but coming from primary text, and he'll show how it's wrong or if it's supported or not. And so this is a book that I would recommend people to get to speak to what you were just saying. I just happened to have this. I made this available for people on Sabre University recently, so this was like in my head, but it speaks to what you're saying. There's
What you say you
there's a
make
lot of people.
available, you made the book available, you make that book
Yeah, yeah. If people want it, as a matter of fact, let me post a link. Um, yeah, it's a I don't know how many pages it is. Let me see if I can pull it up. But I made the book available recently because some other people had asked me some questions, some similar questions. And hold on, give me 1 second. I'm just trying to see. Yeah, it's 260 pages. And but let me get the link. Let me get the link. Or maybe Emicat can post it. Emicat,
what's
if you I
inside
don't
of the
um Emicat posted the link to Amazon. But yeah, if you all want it, let me get the link. Give me 1 second, y'all. Um and as a matter of fact, you by you all getting this link, you all will allow me to test because I had because what I'm doing on Sabre University, I'm recreating the what's called a per majat, which means library. That's the Egyptian word for library. And so I'm recreating the digital library I once had before on seshmetalnetcher.com. And so I'm recreating this library. And so the first book I put on here is that this book right here, Ancient Egypt Facts or Fiction. So if y'all go to this link and try to download it, then at least it'll let me know that this is working. I can just go ahead and rebuild this digital library. I had really a big digital library at one point, and unfortunately, I took it down and never put it back up on a different website. So I'm gonna get that going. But let me put this into the chat right now. And somebody please go there now. I put it in the YouTube chat. Somebody go there now and try to download it. And you all let me know if you have any problems. But anyway, so yeah, I would recommend people get that book. It's a lot of books. I have tons of books, tons of books. That I will be making available to everybody. So anyway, but that's it. So but Mo, just real quick before I end, because we've been on 3 hours. I'm definitely gonna wrap it up. On the subject of the afterlife, though, I would love to have that conversation, and I want to focus on it. And I mentioned bits and pieces here and there and stuff like that, and I always like to kind of set up the conversation. So when it comes to the afterlife, to kind of tie it into what we're talking about with Christianity and stuff, is or the abuse of religion. See, one of the things, like for example, none of us wants to be fooled, because to be fooled or scammed in our minds, that's an admission of weakness, of mental weakness. Like if you can be fooled, then you're mentally weak, and our egos don't allow that. It doesn't like that. The only time that we are comfortable being fooled is when we walk into a situation expecting to be fooled, which is a magic show and stuff like that. Like when you go to a magic show or watch an illusionist and stuff like that, you can have fun with that because you willingly allow yourself to be fooled. Like you don't mind that, right? But on something that you hold dear to yourself, such as your inner feelings and stuff like that, which is what religion does. What people call in religion does, it deals with the inner part of the essence of people. When we feel like we're fooled by that, then now we have a form of what do you call it, post traumatic religion
PSD.
syndrome. yeah, except we have PTS. Yeah, there you go. PTRD or whatever. Post traumatic religious syndrome, where our ego sets up this defense, and we have this hatred because we got fooled, and we're like, man, and that's an ego thing. Like, man, I feel so small, so I'm never gonna let that happen again, and so on and so forth. But what we're actually fooled is the beliefs, not the religion, though. And see, because we make beliefs synonymous with religion, we just look at it all as trash and everything. So here's the thing. One of those things is heaven, because what the abuse that people use and leverage religion with is the ability to control large populations, and how large populations are controlled, rightfully so, is by the contracts of the population. That's how all populations work, no matter what. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just how populations operate. You have to have some kind of bonds and guides and standards for the population, right? But to manipulate a population, you home in on people's beliefs, what they know versus what they don't know, and their fears. So in the belief system, you have the concept of heaven and a concept of hell. And specifically to Christianity, hell is always described as a place that you don't want to go. You don't want to mess with hell. You don't want to be there. You don't want to go. That's where bad people go. You get tormented. You get burned. You got to deal with the devil and demons, and however hell is described, that's somewhere that nobody wants to go. Eternal fire and this, that, and the third, right? And then heaven is the opposite. Heaven is this beautiful, plush place, where you got the angels, you got God chilling, You got everything is at your fingertips, you know, the whole thing. So these two opposed existences is conceptualized in people's minds. Then the question becomes, well, I don't want to go to hell. I want to go to heaven. How do I get there? And then there's a set of rules that's set forth on getting you to heaven. But now here's where the major trick comes in. They tell you that all human beings are born with a direct flight to hell. All human beings are born with a ticket to hell. Now they don't say it that way, but that's what they're saying. Now here's how they say it. They say all human beings are born in sin, and it's sinners that go to hell. And the reason why all humans are born in sin because of the act of the first human beings, the first two couple, Adam and Eve. Because of what Adam and Eve did, everybody is born in sin. And so now people are like worried. They're like, wait a minute. If I'm born already with a ticket to hell, I don't want to go to hell. How do I get to heaven? Now they introduce the solution. Jesus Christ as your personal savior. Jesus Christ, or God himself, comes to earth as his own son to wipe away the original sin or the sins of the world, so that those who believe and accept Jesus as their personal savior may have life and get to heaven. So it's a setup. So I'm speaking in summary, right? So what it is that when people wake up from that, when they stop being fooled by that, their ego will be like, wait a minute, that's not true. Like, why am I trying to live like this and accepting this, but it's a lie? And then they feel betrayed, and people demonize religion because of that. And I'm being specific to Christianity right now. That's one way that they demonize it, and then they look somewhere else. Then you have the Egyptomaniacs and people who romanticize Egypt. They step in to those vulnerable people who went through that, and they say, yeah, Christianity is a lie, but this is where they get all that stuff from for real. Jesus is really Horus, and the cross is really the Ankh, and Mary is really Isis, and blah 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 blah. And then they convert over into the Egypt Kemeticism and stuff like that. And so we got that going on. So all of that stuff is going on. And so what I'm saying is we could eliminate all of that if we simply properly identify things for what they are and do proper analysis of them and just follow the evidence, go with the facts. So there is no heaven or hell as explained in these belief systems. The afterlife or heaven is really the continuous remembrance of a person's identity. But it has to be in the minds of somebody who's alive, because obviously if nobody living remembers somebody who's dead, then that dead person no longer exists. This is just an issue of like no that can't be refuted. If it goes back to that philosophical question. If a tree fall in the forest and makes a sound but nobody's there to hear it, does it really fall, or whatever the case is, all those debates and arguments around that is similar. If nobody alive remembers somebody who's dead, then how did that dead person continues to live? You see? So once we properly identify that, then the society, in order to have an afterlife, when it's properly understood, you will build a reputation to be remembered by as many people as you can, and do things in such a way to where it's talked about from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And as long as that's done, somebody who's alive is going to remember you, and therefore you will have a perpetual existence, an afterlife. Not in the same, obviously the same form and all that other kind of stuff, but you that part of you that could exist beyond your life will exist beyond your life, because people will remember it. So, but it's not about good and evil either. Because, like, for example, Hitler is seen as a negative person in history for what he did, in Germany with the Jews and so on and so forth. But guess what? Hitler has an afterlife because Hitler is remembered. He's notorious, but he's remembered. He's in the history books, and people still talk about him, and they identify him. His identity is intact. Ramses II still has an afterlife. Khufu, Seneferu, Tutankhamun, Mentuhotep, Wasir Ma'at Ra, Setepen Ra, Ma'at Ka Ra, Hatshepsut, all these different people we talk about. And I'm not saying just pronouncing the name, because that's just the form. I'm talking about we have the identity that's intact. Those people still have an afterlife. And that was the purpose. That was go ahead.
I was gonna say that's surely the same afterlife, and they messed that all up. I see why you don't want to speak into after. Oh man, let me go back in my corner.
Oh, okay. Hold up. Just 1 second. I'm looking at the chat. So people were able to download it. I think Ramses said download it real fast. Okay, cool. Jerron said it works. All right, cool. All right, good. Appreciate that, y'all. So I'm gonna move forward with setting up this digital library. So y'all be on the lookout. I'm definitely let people know. I have a large collection of digital material that I'm definitely gonna make it because I'm trying to just push people to read and have access to this stuff. But Mo, just to finish off what I was saying, the purpose of the ancient Egyptians emphasizing the Ren is for the reason I just said. The fact that we still remember these people from 5,000 years ago, and so on and so forth, it is a testimony to why they did what they did. It's proof. We're still talking about Ramses. We still can. We still do. He's still alive. He still, has an afterlife. Not alive in the sense he's not walking around anywhere, but he says an afterlife. Now that's far different from the Christian belief system of heaven. But now there's some underlying uniformity with all this stuff though, because even among Christian believers, they have funerals, Christian funerals, they have burial grounds, and people routinely have rituals. Now this is extra biblical though, but people have practices that although they have a Christian belief, they do things that coincide with these realities that we could talk about. So when people visit grave sites and leave wreaths and flowers and clean the grave sites, what you're doing is you're constantly practicing a remembrance of someone. And then if your parents pass and you go visit their grave site, you're going to take your children, and then the children may do the same thing, visit the grave site every now and then, and so on and so forth, as a remembrance. You may have pictures, photo albums of deceased family members. You may set up a shrine. That's the purpose of a shrine in the house. You pick a clean portion of your room or space in your house, and you call it a shrine, a place that's going to be unbothered, untouched, and you're going to keep it immaculate. They call that a sacred space, or whatever the case is. You're going to put pictures of your deceased relatives, maybe a personal belonging that they had, or whatever the case is, in that area, and that's for remembrance. That's why we do these things, to remember them, and that's what it's all about. And so now in modern days, more people today can have an afterlife than people in ancient times did. Because think about it. In ancient Egypt, in all of ancient Egypt's population, the only people that we remember are the people who made a mark in history. But today, with social media and everything like that, even Facebook itself, when you sign up for Facebook now, they ask you a question: how do you want to be memorialized when you pass away? Like your Facebook account can still. can still exist and you could be remembered. And then we have pictures technology, we have technology, we have voice recordings, we have video footage, we have photography. The ancient people never had these things. So we have a bigger chance, a greater chance to be remembered a whole lot longer than ancient people did. And more of us can be remembered. So the afterlife has grown. The percentage of the afterlife, the population of the afterlife is far greater today than it was in ancient times. Where's the afterlife? Or as a place, it is in the minds of the living. It is nowhere else but the minds of the living. It is not out in space somewhere. It is in the minds of the living. And this is a psychological discussion. This is dealing with the psyche, the mind, and all the other kind of things. And this is how ancestors can influence the living based on what you remember of them. There's no deceased entity in the form of some kind of energetic shell that's going to influence the living. They exist in the mind, and that's very, very powerful influence. And everything I just said, I could support and back up, because it happens. It's just that people don't know how to call it or what to call it, or to see. They, we call these things by the wrong name, so we don't readily identify them. Advertisement and marketing takes advantage of this concept. We're constantly being manipulated and influenced to buy things because the influence and the vulnerability of the mind. And so in certain cultures, we understood this, and we allowed deceased people that we trusted and that we revered. That's what we call the venerated ancestors. Imaku aku, makeru. Those venerated ancestors, aku, who are makeru, who are justified, who are vindicated. We trust them. We put our trust in them, and we allow them to influence us. Today we would call them celebrities or influencers and things. We allowed them. But now we don't have to allow anybody. We get manipulated even if we don't want to be manipulated. Every time we walk into the mall, we're manipulated. You, like Mo, I bet you bought that shirt. That what you got in the picture, that red shirt, you didn't buy it completely on your own. You were manipulated to get that. You were manipulated to get that bad boy in some form of fashion.
Looking all cute
like
on that mannequin soon.
Exactly. You saw the mannequin, like, hey man, shoot, let me try that on. Boy, I got the figure. I got the same figure. That's gonna fit nice on these curves right here, boy. Red. Ooh, red's my favorite color. I don't know why it's my favorite color, but it's my favorite color. Maybe I was manipulated for it to be my favorite color. But yeah, red looks good on me, boy. I got some lipstick I can match that too, boy. Some blush, everything. All right. No, but seriously. So anyway, I want to have this conversation though.
Yeah, it's it's the life from that perspective. I have never heard that before, so I've definitely they messing that all up. But I mean, you could kind of figure, because like you said, bits and pieces. It's being presented to you based off of what you appeal to, to your emotion to get into something else. Ask you, so the part that has, and I know you're gonna get into it, conversation longer and longer, but the portion of where they're is that to decide who's going to be remembered?
No, so here's the thing. See, like I said, as long as some human being who's alive remembers a deceased human being who's now dead, that dead person has an afterlife. The moment that no one who's living remembers them, then they cease to exist. And so this is why it's important for families, biological entities, and households and families to set up proper remembrance tools called shrines, and things. And now, like I said, now it's easier than ever because all you got to do is just collect a bunch of photos of your loved ones, and if they, people who passed away, put them in get them posterized, get a nice 8x10 or whatever, put it in a nice frame it up, put it in a spot, put some things that allows you to remember them even more, and then have it in a spot for remembrance. We call that a shrine, a family shrine, and things. So as long as that takes place, it doesn't matter how many people remember the person. As long as a single person or more remembers that person will have an afterlife. Now, the more people that remember the identity and understand, the more influence that person can have. So there are dead people right now that have a great influence on the living right now to this very day. And there's certain people who don't. There's a lot of people that I don't know even existed, but yet they have an afterlife because somebody remembers them. I just don't, and I never knew them, so I don't even know that they existed, period. So that's how that works. But just quickly, I'm gonna go back to the fear aspect. See, in these belief institutes, the belief systems, they play off the fear. In the example I just gave with heaven and hell, they use that as a way to manipulate people. So it's almost like the Santa Claus syndrome, where the story of Santa Claus is that you'll get Christmas presents only if you're good. So Santa Claus is set up as a character who tracks data. So he creates a list and he checks it twice, whether you're naughty or whether you're nice. And those who are nice get Christmas presents. Those who are naughty, they don't. And so the belief system has something similar in it. If you are a sinner and your sins have not been washed by the blood of the Lamb of Jesus Christ, then you risk going to hell. But if you're baptized and you accept Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, then you can get to heaven or get to the Father by way of the Son and all that other kind of stuff. That's the pathway. So they use that to manipulate the population, because what you deem as a sin and the laws is set up as the foundation for that. Therefore, people got to follow a certain behavior and act a certain way. These same people become predictable. The people who are outside of that law, they can become the manipulators, because they know that the law or that the manipulation is happening. And so they can manipulate large populations by way of this. And this is what happens to this very day. Now, to go further, that form of control or controlling a population is absolutely necessary. So that in and of itself is not an evil thing or a bad thing. But here's the issue, is that form of control that I just described is the equivalent of a weak force or weak control. It's not genuine. And that's like a counter what do you call it? A powder keg ready to explode. And it's more along the lines of, let's say you were a leader of a group of people or a country. Let's say you're a leader of a country. Would you want people to obey and do what you say out of fear or out of love? Like, they listen to you and they do what you say, but they only do it because they fear you. They fear some kind of consequence. Or would you rather them listen to you and follow instructions and do what you say out of love and out of just trusting your mind? And so which one is stronger,
love.
which one is weaker? Exactly. So although both can be manipulative, one is weaker than the other. Because if people do things out of fear, and that's the only reason why they do it, then you have to maintain that level of fear. And so you as the leader, you're always going to be defensive. You're always going to have to exercise something to to reaffirm the fear. But if you got a group of people who are obeying and listening and following your instructions out of respect and love and admiration of your mind, then you don't have to keep you don't have to keep that up. So that's a stronger and better way, a better pathway to go. So now, what these religious institutions, really belief systems do, they do the other one. They operate off of fear. And so when people wake up and they pull the curtain from the wizard in Wizard of Oz, and they pull the curtain and find out that it's this little scrawny little man right there, all hell breaks loose, and that's what's happening. People are anti-religious because of that. It's the whole Wizard of Oz. They pulling the curtain away from Jesus. They pulling the curtain away from God, of the biblical God. And now they like, nah, I don't need that. And that's what's happening because it wasn't set up right in the first place. So this is to round back to my whole entire point. The moment we properly define religion and what that's all about, and we properly define beliefs and what that's all about, we can start to fix things. We can get rid of the whole Wizard of Oz. We can get rid of all that stuff and do things in a much more beneficial way. That's how we could, because it's better to do things without the scammy stuff. It's like lying. It's better to tell the truth than to lie. Why? Because you don't have to remember truth. But every lie you tell, you have to remember. Because truth matches reality, and you don't have to record that, because it's going to speak for itself. It's self-evident. Lies are not self-evident. You have to memorize your lies, because somebody else may ask you the same question. You got to remember what you told the other person. You got to remember the lie that you told, so you don't contradict yourself. Facts don't contradict. Like, reality is not contradictory by nature. So the closer we stay to reality, the better off we are. We'll free up our minds to deal with other things. And so that's what I'm proposing. This is the pathway that we need to be going. You know, and so it starts with starting to analyze these things, what's going on. So that's it. So the afterlife, you know, as sad or let down as it may be, heaven and hell, as it's taught in these religions, is not what people think it is. So we need to set up ourselves to do great things while we're alive. We have a limited amount of time from birth to death, even living a full life without any, accident or unfortunate catastrophes or whatever. If we just live a full life, it's limited. So we need to spend that time making an impact on life itself, so that we could perpetuate, because life perpetuates life. And at the very, very bottom core, the nitty gritty of good and evil is the difference between that which promotes life versus that which hinders it. That's it. That's it. Now there's many levels to that, but that's the basis. And that's what we supposed to be dealing with. And that's it. We'd be so far more advanced. Have you noticed the sci-fi futuristic shows? They still have modern day problems in it. Like you could watch some kind of Star Trek-y type show. It's taking place in the year 3046. 3046, and they still have the same problems we have today. It's like, man, that's depressing. Like, what you mean? After 1,000 years, y'all still fussing and fighting over that? That's crazy. That's crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? Cause we, the creative thinkers of these writers of these shows, man, they gotta think beyond that. They gotta start looking at, But I don't blame them, because that's what we have. All right, but anyway, I'm definitely gonna shut it down. So Ankoma and Mo and Emicat, I'll be running my mouth. So any y'all have any last words, y'all can definitely go for it.
No, peace and thank you. I look forward to the other videos.
All right, good to see you though. Yeah, Mo, I'll be trying to give you
Yeah, man, peace. I
definitely
I
shout out
go
every
look
time.
forward,
Yeah, thank you
Oh
for
no,
my
go
little
ahead, go
flower.
ahead.
looking forward
All right.
for your presentation on the thing on the debate topic kind of. But
Oh, okay, cool, cool,
we see
cool.
it's gonna speak on it, or you have a blue presentation to give on that same issue.
I don't know. I may put a presentation together. If I once the discussion takes place and I can get some points from it, it's open. It depends on how it goes. But I will chime
I
in
think
because people. Go ahead.
we are trying with the delay. Sorry about that. That if you together your thoughts before you see the before you get addition or whatever it is what them is gonna bring out now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
good?
I I pretty much have.
I'll say.
Oh, go ahead, Mo. You were saying something too?
No, I was gonna say we kind of already know what's gonna practically be said. It's not the first time it's visited. I mean, you could only say it so many ways.
Yeah,
No
that's
man.
The only
That thing I think on the night of the debate if we're gonna be exposed to a lot of sources and merit text and certain things like that and particularly like advice all now, you know.
yeah. I'm looking. I'm interested in seeing what's going to be said because that's definitely not a new topic. That topic has been had over and over and over again. From people who just come in contact with Gerald Massey's works, George G.M. James' works, Professor Walter Williams, where they talk about Christianity, um, and stuff like that. Even among the Masonic institutions and Freemasonry and stuff, that these are different dialogues and talks that members may show and have and stuff like that. Um, I mean, I've witnessed it for years, so it'd be interesting to see what's different, what could be said that's different from it. But I don't even know the exact
But
title because it's if if um if if the title if the debate question is something along the lines Christianity stealing from Egypt, or if the word plagiarize is used and stuff or whatever, then I think that's gonna kind of give some kind of character to the discussion. Like that's gonna matter because that could be easily played off of like it wasn't exactly stolen, it was influenced, or it was some
that's
cultural
what you already know.
cross pollination of cultural stuff. I could just hear a lot of that going on.
You already
I
know.
just I just don't I don't think I don't think the question I don't think the question has been handled correctly
so you think it boils
over the
down
years.
to a semantic about the word stolen and kind
That's
of
gonna be part
picking
of it.
about the word stolen.
I,
That that's
I think
that's gonna be part of it. That's not gonna be a
the
major
whole
thing, but that's gonna be part of it. Watch.
the yeah. Well,
Or pre-debate. It may not take place in the discussion, but it's gonna be said. It's already been said. Like people arguing. Well, if Jabari say it's stolen, then I don't know. Garfield may whatever. Or if they say influenced by, then man, Jabari gonna beat up Garfield. I've seen people uh screenshot, and people have asked me to chime in. See, people send me screenshots and stuff like man, I like about 5 people in a row, and I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do that yet. People have asked me to chime in on their conversation. I'm like, nah, I'm not. Cause I'm not really interested in that though, to tell you the truth. Um, but it's something that's so overwhelming that I can't ignore it. But I'm not interested in that because I don't think the question is being approached properly. Because whether Christianity stole, plagiarized, or was influenced by ancient Egyptian culture, to me, it's not something that I'm very much interested in. Cause let's say it was, then what? Or let's say it wasn't, then what? I'm more
Yeah,
interested in the then what, you
yeah.
know.
I think.
Muja, I will side. Uh, Go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say. I think that the idea behind it always is to show what you may mention earlier, that how they're practicing it close to a Christian way is what they're trying, is what is trying to be highlighted, but that's not what's being asked that's coming out. So um yeah.
Okay, so I guess y'all leave it to me to close out. I would like to actually thank Senate Monica for actually showing up. It's wonderful to actually have you back on the panel. So we hope you actually drop by most of the time.
Whoop, whoop.
And oh, go ahead.
And I said whoop whoop.
Oh, okay. Whoop, whoop. But yeah, no, it's actually nice because I don't know why people don't always want to come on the panel, but it's it gives for good conversation for the most part. So yeah, so we appreciate you coming on the panel and Uncle Majed as usual. Having those wonderful questions and they're very intriguing and just these are the kind of conversations that we like. So I usually just stay in the car like just quiet, because I think this is the best part. But I would like to thank you all for coming on the panel and for everybody else that's, participated in the chat and everybody else that's going to be watching. And yeah, that's it. Really good conversation. I hope we get to do another one quickly.
I'm gonna do my Russell Simmons. Thank
All
y'all. God
right, well,
bless. Good night. Oh no no, Uncle,
man,
go ahead.
thanks
My
for
fault. I'm
having me.
sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Give your closing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just saying, thanks for having me, man. I know nothing. I'll just say thanks for having me on the program, man. Good, man.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely appreciate it, man. Every time you come on, it's a good conversation. So keep, feel free, if you got time and I'm live, I always throw the panel link up there. Come on through. But other than that, I am going to say peace, God bless, and good night. Shalom Hotep to everyone. Peace.